the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app on yet another Misery Monday. Our 9th of the season. I guess all of them haven't been on Mondays because, well, there was the Thursday night game against the Bears. That was the first time they gave up 40 this year. And then there was, we had a Misery Monday because we were off on Black Friday after they gave up 45 to the Cowboys. And here we are again in Misery Monday land. Yikes. Not good. Doesn't matter how good it is. We start the show the same way. Hit it.
It's time to get the breakdown started. 1, 2, 3. First up, 10 observations.
Took it high and just boom, put it right on the ground.
It's first and 10.
Oh, boy. Where to start? Let's start with the highest level of thought specific to this game. I'm just going to say this, and then we're going to get on to the larger, bigger point.
Number 1.
The most important thing for the Dolphins-Commanders game is that was a good football team against a bad football team, and they played football, and what happened was what happens when a good football team plays a bad football team, and that is really the most important thing you need to know as to why they lost by $1 billion. That's it. Like, it was not only a good football team in the Dolphins, but a good football team that does the things well that the Commanders have as weaknesses as a bad football team. Again, that's not earth-shattering analysis, but they lose 45-15, and that's why. So let's just acknowledge that. We'll get to some specifics, but let's then get to the actual biggest takeaway for me from this game, and this is going to be a headline that stuns people.
Number 2.
In this football game, Mike McDaniel exposed Eric Bieniemy more than he did Ron Rivera. Wait a second. You mean Mike McDaniel, the offensive coach, exposed the other offensive coach more than the defensive coach that he dropped 45 points on? I guess 37, 38, because one of it was a pick six. Yeah, I did say that, and I mean every word of it. Let me explain. What you saw yesterday at FedEx Field was the team in white running a big boy modern 2023 offense. And Anthony, hilariously, do you remember the promo that we had running for a while about me saying, I'm excited because I think the Commanders are going to run a big boy 2023 offense?
Yes, I do.
They didn't. They don't do that. They don't run a big boy 2023 NFL offense. In fact, they run the West Coast version of what Scott Turner ran. I can't believe on December 4th, I'm sitting here saying that. But they run a West Coast versus an Eric Coryell version of what Scott Turner ran. It's simple pictures for the quarterback. It's not using motions and formations to create matchups for your star players. It's not playing to your strength. It's just relying on the scheme to win. And that doesn't work because the last 40 years of the NFL, defenses have been trying to stop those offenses. The Air Coryell system from Coryell himself and the West Coast Bill Walsh system. Defenses now in 2023 with their zone match concepts and all the different tools they have know what to do with basic schemes. So how do you then use that against them and create great matchups in space, big plays, good angles in the run game, etc. for your players? Even if they're very good players, not just rely on the fact that they might win one-on-one. And Mike McDaniels takes that to the biggest extreme in the NFL. They game plan everything. Tyreek Hill is everywhere. Is Tyreek Hill the best receiver in football? Probably. Is he definitely playing the best because he actually plays for a coach who says, hey, man, I know you're really good. And typically we try to, traditionally NFL offensive coordinators just gimmick stuff up for players who aren't very good. They just leave players who are good alone and trust that they'll win. But what if we took the concepts that are used to make sure that not as good players got open and applied them to you? And the answer is this offense. And if you watch the two teams play yesterday and you think Washington's offense looks anything like Miami's, I revoke your football watching intelligence card. I don't think I'm going to have to do that to anyone because the results are self-evident. And by the way, the numbers at this point aren't that different from what we saw last year. And again, Scott Turner last year was dealing with Carson Wentz for 6+ games. Like, that's the results. Like, we can talk about the process, and I'll keep going on that in a second. But the results are damning at this point. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, for anyone that thought EB might be a candidate here as head coach, I think at this point, with the way the defense is going and with a bunch of all the other stuff, like, if they wanted him to be the guy, like, they would have made him the guy. I think I'm pretty confident in that. And I am definitely ready to definitively say here on December 4th that I am not interested in another year of this. I would like some more creativity. I would like some more innovation, and I would like a different philosophy. And the biggest difference between old school and new school philosophy in the NFL right now offensively is not West Coast versus Air Coryell, horizontal versus vertical, run versus pass. It is personnel versus scheme. And what the best coaches are doing is using scheme to elevate great personnel versus trusting that good personnel will win and produce with a good scheme. That is the difference. And what's crazy to me is if you watch Kansas City's offense while Bieniemy was there, by the way, an offense that's struggling more than it has recently without him. So it's not like EB didn't contribute anything there. It's not like he's a big giant dum-dum. It's just that, like, it's for whatever reason this year he hasn't done some of the stuff that worked for him in the past. You watch how they game plan stuff for Kadarius Toney. You watch how they game plan stuff for Tyreek back in the day. You watch how they game plan stuff, obviously, for Travis Kelce over the course of years. But also, part of the reason that offense works so damn well is because it is designed for some more interior type of players, and Kelce as a tight end is the ultimate of that. It also works well when you have a quarterback who's super creative, and you've seen Sam shine at times this year with that. And Mahomes and Kelce have this incredible chemistry that ultimately makes that thing Super Bowl worthy year in and year out, although currently not maximized, as we see with them losing again last night. But the Miami offense is dynamic. It's balanced, not 50-50 balance. It's not what balanced means. Balance doesn't mean two people on or one person on either side of the seesaw. It means the right weights on each side of the seesaw. And that's what Miami's is. They run it enough that they get the benefit of their play-action game. Their play-action game is married to their run game. Their protections make sense for the route combination. It is dynamic, it is cohesive, and it is specific. Miami, more than any other team in football, says, what do you do defensively? When do you do it? Okay, if they then are going to run this front most of the time on first down, we're going to make sure we practice running our base runs this week against that front. We're going to game plan it up. And that's the difference between your training camp offense that is more or less generic. Hey, in theory, you're going to kind of block this guy. Well, what happens when this guy is over there? Or this guy now is on the wrong side of you? Do you figure out how to create a better angle? Do you figure out how to change the numbers? Like, do you do the little things that when teams throw wrinkles at you to make your life difficult, you have an adjustment ready? The Commanders don't. The Dolphins do. The Dolphins have maybe the best offensive in the NFL, and the Commanders are bottom 10 again. Yesterday, Mike McDaniel exposed Eric Bieniemy more than he did Ron Rivera. Maybe the biggest piece of evidence is Terry McLaurin's usage. We'll pick up our 1st and 10 there next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. All right, let's pick up with our first segment, and we got 10 observations from that 45-15 loss to the Dolphins.
Number 3.
Terry McLaurin didn't forget how to play football. And it's interesting hearing some of the commentary of, oh, he's overrated, he was never that good, blah, blah, blah. Terry McLaurin is a really freaking good football player, and I've already been exchanging some film clips with Logan. Like, there's opportunities in this game where he just doesn't get the football. He does what he's supposed to, or other people get in his way, like John Dotson. There's one play I was looking at that I think Terry could have gotten a look if he could have been faster into his route, but Jahan Dotson is slow off his release out of a bunch, and he's kind of in Terry's way. And so what's Terry supposed to do? Run him over? Like, no, that's going to make it slower for the both of them. So he kind of skips, hops, and releases behind Jahan, but by then the offensive line, which we'll get to, is giving up a pressure, and Sam can't get the ball to Terry. Like, there are opportunities in this game. There's no feasible way that he should have 3 targets and no catches. He's too good for that. And, of course, some of that is on him. But it goes back to what I talked about with Bieniemy, where do you believe in getting your best players the football and having that win you football games? Because if you do, you find ways. Screens. He is an excellent slant runner. That can't be that hard to get him isolated, whether it's as an outside receiver or, God forbid, you move him into the slot. I mean, look at what Mike McDaniel did yesterday on that first Tyreek Hill touchdown. He created a man-to-man matchup of Tyreek Hill on Quan Martin man-to-man with no safety help. Don't tell me it can't be done. It's like, hey, it's third down. There's a good chance they're going to play man here. Let's find out. Okay, cool. Let's move A-Chain outside. Jamin Davis followed him. That's man-to-man. By the way, A-Chan smoked Davis on that. Jamin got lucky. The ball went the other way. Not lucky as a team, because the other way was to Tyreek Hill with no safety help, because the safety was helping to the running back on linebacker side. But that happens, one, because you get Tyreek matched up against your nickel corner. It happened to be Quan on that particular one, a rookie nickel corner. And they do it out of the slot, so there's more room to work, right? A slot fade is way easier. One, you have a two-way go, so you can either beat your guy inside and then box him to the outside, or you can get a clean release outside and there's more space to throw it. So it's a more ideal throw, and you're just operating in acres of space. Why can't they do that stuff with McLaurin? There's no good reason. And so it drives me bananas, some of the stuff about Terry. And obviously he's got this incredible quote after the game where he's like, yeah, I got some good cardio in out there. But some of this is on Sam and decision-making. Some of this is on Eric and design flaw. Some of this is on other people getting in the way, not running the right routes. And some of it is on Terry not performing up to the level that he would certainly hope. But at the same time, like, as a human being, I have empathy for Terry, because you're having the worst season of your career with this guy that was supposed to turn you into an all-pro. And, like, that's got to be hard to mentally keep plowing forward. And you're not going to have a rhythm. You're not going to feel in the game in the same way. It's not like he's not playing hard. But, God, what a tough day at work for Terry McLaurin yesterday.
Number 4.
Continuing on this, like, things Eric perhaps could be more creative with, train, and in ways that this offense probably could have been better and helped itself and helped the defense, which is not good. All that stuff. What if they had, like, a run game with Sam Howell? You know, you watched Sam yesterday, and this kid is so special off schedule. He's so special as a runner, like, not in the way Lamar Jackson is special as a runner, but he just picks up big plays, and, like, he's tough and he's elusive and he sets up blocks. He sees the field extremely well as a runner when he gets out into space. So why not use that? Like, you're struggling to find things that work, that create rhythm, that help him feel in the game. So you found quick game for a while. And by the way, your run game is actually been pretty efficient, but most of that is just because you're subverting expectations and no one ever anticipates you running. And maybe if you had a little bit, something you liked a little bit more, you could get some more consistency, and you like these gun runs. So if you zone read that and you make it so you take either a player out of the run fit because he's got to account for Sam, or he goes and chases a running back who doesn't have the ball and Sam's got a wide open lane, these seem like good things. So, I'm not an offensive coordinator. I am not an NFL coach, but I've been around this game long enough, and I know enough, and I've studied enough and talked to enough smart people to know like some of the options available on a big picture basis. And that's one that just doesn't make sense to me that they haven't used this year. And you're reminded of it yesterday as Sam finds the end zone again and has another pretty significant day on the ground.
Number 5.
The pick six. Yikes, man. I don't know whether that's bad play design and Wiley's not supposed to get a punch, or Wiley just kind of times it out and he's like, I'm trying to get a punch. This guy's running away from me. Okay, I leave now. And he just figures he's out of the play. And then he's not, because he's very much in the play. In fact, he's in the throwing lane. But that's just brutal. And it's the kind of detail level mistake that either from a design flaw standpoint or an execution standpoint shouldn't be happening in the NFL. It's also a ridiculous play by Van Ginkel to feel that out. It's good scouting, but that's another thing. Like, you talk about the sequencing of play calls, and there's a couple times in this game, some of it's third down, some of it's that, where it's like you're predictable offensively. And if a team knows what's coming, it's way easier to stop. And whether it's a certain run, whether it's a favorite concept. I mean, we killed Scott Turner last year for running mesh on every third down. This team has some tendencies like that. And out of that formation and kind of that point in the game, they were due for a wide receiver screen, and Van Ginkel was all over it. Oof. Woof. Not great. Bob.
Number 6.
I don't know whether that one was on Wiley, but generally speaking, the offensive line did not have a good day. A couple of examples. And by the way, this is why it's so hard to talk about offensive line play as a whole, is like on all these plays I'm going to mention, it's like one guy. Now, there are times where there's bad communication or multiple guys lose, but you can have, guys have really good, like Sam Cosmi had a good game yesterday. He was fine. Nothing really to complain about with Sam Cosmi's day. And for a lot of plays, most of the other guys were largely fine. They ran the ball well yesterday, so that should probably be mentioned as a positive for the O-line. But, second drive of the game, first play. 4 guys block it great, and Chris Paul just absolutely gets smoked. Bad day for Chris Paul at the office yesterday. And it should have been an easy first down completion. And if I remember correctly, it probably would have been to Terry. And instead, Sam scrambles, and he makes a nice little play out of it. But your offense's ability to get going, get in a rhythm, and be on schedule is not there because your offensive line can't hold up in key situations. The third down on that same drive is the Van Ginkel spin move, which is just a really great play by him, but also kind of a weird set by Wiley. It's a weird rush or protection plan where Bates swings the rusher way wide on a chip, and then Wiley finds himself in like an awkward amount of space. He's got to do better in that. You give him the help of the chip. At that point, you got to protect the pocket, even if the pocket is going to be keeping the back door closed. Like, you got to figure that out. And then there's a play later in the game, one of Terry's 3 targets, the one that they miss him in the end zone. Good play by Xavier Howard. Sam's got to throw that up early, and maybe he's able to lead Terry to open space if he's got more time. But it's a blitz, and I don't know whether it wound up being a true blitz or simulated pressure, but the defensive end drops out. The linebacker comes, and from a responsibility standpoint, Charles Leno is correct in looking at the defensive end, being like, that's my guy to block. But you let a guy, like, he's dropping, and you have a guy run right past you. Like, is that on the back? Is that on, did Chris Paul need to slide? But, like, at some point, you need your offensive linemen to play a little bit, not outside of structure and scheme, because that gets you in trouble, but you need them to make plays. And it's like, hey, I saw that guy's dropping out. This guy seems to be going to murder my quarterback. I'm going to take a step to my right and decleat him. That would be good. Instead, Sam takes pressure, takes a big hit. Terry's not able to make the play down the field. Good play by Howard. But at the end of the day, what happens if Sam can step into that throw? Can he dot Terry? Can he lead him maybe farther to the middle of the field in space? Is that a touchdown at a key point in the game when it's still close-ish? I don't know. We can't know because it didn't happen. Offensive line, not good.
Number 7.
Speaking of not good, this is the unscariest defense that I can remember watching in all my years here. They always had Ryan Kerrigan or Preston Smith or Chase or Montez. John has been here most of the time that I've been here. Duran. Like, they've had players who can get after the quarterback. They've always had someone floating around the back end who felt a little dangerous from a turnover perspective. They don't have any of that right now. And there's no pass rush. There's no playmaking. I mean, there's a play in the game. I think it's in the second quarter. It's like 2 plays before the second Hill touchdown. Tua's back there, and he sees Jalen Waddle running deep on Benjamin St-Juste and Percy Butler, and he basically goes, bleep it, I'm throwing it. And he heaves it long, and he's trying to, hope that Waddle can run past those 2 guys, and they do a good job of staying there and breaking up the play. But there's no fear it's going to be picked off. It's like, double coverage, but those two guys are not going to make a play. So let's throw it, and maybe something good happens. Maybe we get a PI. Maybe Jalen comes down with it. Maybe they trip over each other. Who knows? But there's no fear, and that's a rough place to be. That ship is so sailed by now. I don't really have a lot to say on the defense, and they're bad. I think they can play better over the final 4 games with the simplification. There was some stuff, believe it or not, that was better yesterday, but they played the worst team they could play in the whole league yesterday, and that, yes, the score line is a result of that more so than it is anything else.
Number 8.
If you want something positive, I think KJ Henry's a good football player. Their 5th-round pick who was inactive most of the first part of the year because he wasn't as impactful of a special teams guy as Andre Jones Jr. He's obviously been getting way more opportunities since the trades and the injury to F.A. Obata and the injury to James Smith-Williams. And he is showing that I think he can be a part of your rotation, and he might be good enough to be a starter next year. He's not going to be a stud by any stretch of the imagination. But just a very solid football player. And, I remember talking to someone after they drafted him who's down at Clemson, and he's like, from a character standpoint, this guy's off the charts. The kind of like just core piece that you can build around, and kind of like James and Casey have been these last 4 years, where it's, hey, these are really reliable guys that if we need them to start in a pinch, they're not going to leave us out to dry. They're not going to make a ton of plays, but they'll do the job. And you need, I think one of the lessons we learned from the Sweat Young experiment is you need a guy like that on your D-line. You need guys that will just rush the rush plan, not go out of structure, not freelance. And there's real value in structure so that other guys can freelance off of them. And so they need to get an impact edge guy this offseason, whether it's draft or free agency. No question about it. But I think KJ Henry might actually be the guy that they can play on the other side. If not, he's definitely, like, his floor is he's a part of the rotation next year. So that's nice.
Number 9.
Speaking of things you can keep for next year, if you want to keep something for next year for continuity, and I realize no fan wants to do that, but organizationally speaking, if you're Josh Harris, there is, and by the way, there is something to that, to have someone on the coaching staff, someone in the building who the players know, we're familiar with, and someone who, by the way, is also familiar with them. So that when a new coach comes in, yes, you want them to be able to form their own opinions, but if they want to know, like, hey, what's so-and-so like? How do I get through to him? To not have to learn that all fresh, to have someone with some institutional knowledge of the people around. Nate Katzer would be actually a good guy to potentially keep. The Commanders' special teams has been fine this year, and they've done that despite a number of key injuries to key special teamers at varying times. Like Christian Holmes missed a long time. Next guy stepped up, was fine. Like Quan Martin struggled immensely on defense. He's been a good special teams player. And I think the biggest one is obviously Jeremy Reeves, who was an all-pro last year. And Terrell Burgess has stepped in and been fantastic on teams for them. Being that personal punt protector, being a guy who gets downfield and makes plays. Like, he hasn't been as good as Reeves, but he's been solid. And from a production standpoint, you haven't given up big punt returns. You haven't given up big plays. And so if you want to keep Katzer around next year, I don't think that's a bad idea. And by the way, Reeves replaced Shazer Everett, and who was awesome before Reeves was. So there's clearly a through line of good coaching and good organization on that. And I think that there is some value in keeping someone who, by the way, knows more players than anyone else on the roster, because that is the nature of special teams. It's up to, you don't have to. It's up to the next coach. I'm not going to throw a fit over the special teams coach by any stretch. But if he winds up staying around, just remember this little nugget from this here 1st and 10.
Number 10.
Last but not least, and this is something we're going to get into as the week goes, the question of identity with this team, besides punching bag right now, which is not an identity any team likes to be, you just kind of watch sometimes and you go, what are they trying to do? Like, what were they built for? Because they ran the ball pretty well yesterday, and like they drafted Brian Robinson and they did all this stuff from a roster standpoint. Then they hired Eric Bieniemy and passed the ball more than anyone else. And by the way, they also drafted a bunch of receivers and spent money on Curtis Samuel. And it's just a non-cohesive roster. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing to follow this offseason is what parts of this roster stay, what parts go. In part because if you play a certain way, certain guys are a great fit, scheme fit potentially. You go a different way, a whole different guy or group of guys might also be very beneficial, but the Venn diagram of both is a bunch of losses, and that's where the current team sits. That is our 1st and 10. 10 observations from the game, and this one, the Commanders' 9th loss of the season. When we get back, Logan Paulson and I's instant reaction of the game from FedEx Field. Take command on a Monday. Michael Phillips joins us 5 o'clock. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. All right, here's what we got for the rest of the show today. First of all, Anthony, say hello to everybody. Anthony, of course, here. Just, first and 10. We kind of get down to business,
What's up, everybody? How y'all doing today?
They can't talk back, Anthony.
I know.
Okay. So there's that. Michael Phillips will join us coming up at the top of the hour. Always enjoy his visit. He told me yesterday, Anthony, we got finished with the Take Command post-game show, the instant reaction show, some of which we're about to play for you here on the radio show. But we got finished, and then Michael and I were chatting real quick, and he's like, I think I'm good for 5 minutes on this game and 15 minutes of bits tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So
right.
I don't know. I mean, we're going to talk about football, but that one could get wacky.
Okay.
Just saying. We'll go around the NFL at 5:30. How do we do on our picks? I actually think we did okay.
Yeah, we did. I mean, the last game of the night didn't really help.
Not a good finish, but
yeah.
we're okay. And then we will get through our pick six. Yikes on that. Coming up at 6 p.m. Right now, though, Logan and I got together after the game yesterday, and we spilled our thoughts into microphones. Let it rip.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulson and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
I want to go to the offense, though, for just a moment, because I think this is the biggest concern right now with this team is the offense had some really nice performances earlier in the season, and from a production standpoint, it does really feel like they have taken a step back. Yeah. They're slowing down. Ron talked about missed opportunities post-game. Sam said it's some of everything. I was talking to Logan Thomas about this, and he said the same thing. Like, it's hard because it's some of everything. There's not one thing to pinpoint. But when you see it a little bit more detailed, what do you see that they're not able to break 20 points yet again?
Yeah, so this is going to be – it's kind of tough to talk about this because we don't have the All-22 yet.
Yeah, right.
So as soon as we have it, I'll be able to give you like a more detailed understanding. But at least my immediate reaction to this is that when you look at some of those coverage opportunities, teams are matching the concepts that the Commanders are running at a really high level. There's not a lot of air in the coverage. There's not a lot of opportunity for separation. Guys kind of, I don't want to say they know it, but they're matching it very, very well. And obviously the Curtis Samuel play is exceptional. But then if you look at every other explosive kind of big play in this game, it's Sam escaping the pocket and elevating the offense. And I think that's the thing that is really, really challenging to negotiate as an analyst, because you say what Miami does, and everything they do is designed to put you in conflict and make the defense kind of second-guess themselves. And here this feels very, very traditional in terms of approach. And obviously they've had success with that at points in the year, but I do feel like some of these better defense, some of these more talented defenses, some of these teams that are better at the man-match stuff are man-matching better. And I think it's making it more difficult for Sam to elevate and do some special things. And to be fair, like there's a choice route that they run early in the game to Jahan. I think it was in the second quarter. Jahan just takes too long on the choice. Sam has to escape the pocket. He finds Curtis down the field for an explosive play. That's Jahan taking too long, right?
Right. Logan said that there's a couple times where he thinks he could have separated faster, turned faster for the ball, et cetera.
Right. And I think there's some of that going on. So there's the details, but also I just say, and again, maybe this is the OC in me coming out or dealing with Kyle or talking to Mike McDaniel. There's a hunger and a passion to elevate every single position on the field. And there's times where I'm like, is that putting him in the best position to make a play or be successful? And the answer is unknown to me. I'll know better when I watch the All-22.
Yeah, that's fair enough. One of the big talking points of the game and the pressers, et cetera, I'm going to guess that our friend Sam Fortier has a story on this coming because he was asking many questions. Terry McLaurin, just 3 targets on the day, no catches. I think it's the second time he's had no catches in his career. I mean, what do you make of that? And is that when you think about the approach, I think it's interesting. The biggest to me discrepancy between like a new school and an old school approach is a lot of these new school coaches are like, who are my playmakers? How do I get them the ball? Right. Old school is like, here's the scheme. It's going to work and get guys open. And it does feel like teams defensively have been able to match up with Terry well. He's obviously playing one of the best today, Jalen Ramsey. And then there's not kind of a dedicated effort to get him the football. That's kind of a very, very broad view of it. But why are we, again, talking about Terry and his lack of production here?
And this is, I think, kind of maybe goes in line with the first point I made about the way teams are matching concepts. Because Terry, we talked about Terry while he's a very skilled route runner, very dynamic athlete, very competitive at the catch point, not a great separator in the sense of like a Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill or whatever it is. And so I think the fact that teams are getting more familiar with the concepts that they're running and matching concepts better make it more challenging for Terry to do something that he's not excellent at, which is separate. So I think that's part of it. Also game flow and reading through the progression is a big part of this, right? And so we've talked about how, like there needs to be, when you're reading through the progression, maybe Terry's the number one read. Maybe you position it so that Terry's in that position as opposed to him being the third guy or it is. So I think it's a combination of things. And again, this is something we'll know better once we watch the All-22. But it is a little bit confounding. And I think it's interesting that most of Terry's targets in the last couple of weeks have come on quick game. And for whatever reason today, that was not a priority for this offense in the same way that it has been the last couple of weeks. So interesting.
Yeah. They ran the ball way more today than they have, to the point that some people were getting a little snippy on because apparently on the broadcast, Rivera told Christina Pink at halftime that, like, hey, we're down 31-7. We got to run the ball more. So I'm not sure the exact context of that. Obviously, being here at the stadium, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see you don't get to hear exactly the context of that quote, but it makes me think that there was a clear directive to run the football more, and maybe EB kind of subbed the run game with some of that, or subbed the quick game with some of that rushing.
Maybe, and I think what Ron's probably talking about there is there's this knee-jerk reaction in those situations to start throwing the ball a ton, and versus a Vic Fangio defense, when you place such a huge emphasis on coverage structures, you can't totally depart from the run. Right, it's got to be still a feature of what you're doing. So I think that's something that maybe he was alluding to. And again, we didn't hear the quote, but I know that sounds probably bad, but I think versus this defense and versus this style of defense, you need to keep that as a feature or some type of run, a pass kind of run changeover.
Substitute.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So Sink is in a very, very interesting spot now over the games. It does feel more like ever before that he's playing for his job for next year. Obviously, there's a million factors in this, which is going to start with available depending on where they draft and how does the quarterback, potentially your quarterbacks, how do they compare to Sam? All Sam can control right now is how he plays.
Yeah.
The off-schedule stuff's insane.
It's awesome.
And
he's been great.
I think that before we talk about maybe why he's having to be off-schedule so much, it's important to point out that is a very rare trait. And the ability to make plays in this league matters a lot. It is one of the reasons I would be extremely hesitant to go in a different direction unless I love one of these quarterbacks, because I feel like I can keep putting him in better situations on schedule. I think the thing that we need to get a feel for over this final 4-game stretch of the season from Sam is how much of this stuff that's happening on sacks, how much of the pressures are happening because he's missing stuff in the rhythm of the offense.
That's absolutely right.
Versus breakdowns from the offensive line, receivers not doing their job time. How much of this is quarterback adjacent? How much of this is non-quarterback adjacent?
I think that's a great point. Like we got the Philly 49ers game on here in the background, and you see Brock Purdy anticipating throws, and that's something that when you watch Sam Howell, he doesn't have a great feel for those anticipatory throws. And in this offense, in this West Coast offense, it's a huge feature of it. When you watch Tua, not the strongest arm, but he anticipates throws at an extremely high level. Like when he's throwing that drift, when he's throwing that dig, when he's throwing the quarter of the pylon, whatever it is, that ball's out before the receivers made the break. And that's understanding the concept, that's trusting the concept. And I'm not sure Sam's there yet. So when we go back and watch the All-22, I think we'll be able to kind of give a better feel for, hey, there's not a lot of air here, but if he throws this with a little anticipation or he gets to the backside dig a little bit quicker, there's an opportunity there. But I also think it's important to the more I'm thinking about it, the more we're talking through it, it becomes apparent to me just reflecting on the game that sometimes it's the play call, sometimes it's the receiver, and sometimes it's Sam. And that's another sign of kind of a young offense, because I can think of a couple just off the top of my head where Logan's running the backside dig, and that's been open a ton for like Jalen Hurts, for example, and it's completely blanketed here, right? And is that Logan? Is that running that concept too frequently? But I'm sure everyone should take a little bit of responsibility and ownership and say I could do it better. So I think,
and to Sam's credit, by the way, he did.
He always does, and that's a fantastic element of leadership that he always seems to bring to those post-game pressers, and I think it's one of the things that makes him special. But so to your point, is he's improved in terms of taking sacks. He's improved in that area. Can he improve in this area? It seems like yes. And he just seems like the type of kid you want to bet on, especially given some of the off-schedule stuff he's been able to get to. But to be a good quarterback, you got to work within the schedule of the offense. And, again, we'll know when we watch the All-22, but that's something we definitely got to keep an eye on.
I think you made a great point a couple times this week, podcast, pregame show. probably other places too. Like this is on track for like a Jalen Hurts model.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jalen's taken it to an MVP level, and who knows what Sam will eventually cap out as from a ceiling standpoint. But you have a guy who does something special. You continue to work with him.
Yeah.
You might be able to develop him into a better on-schedule, in-rhythm quarterback. That's the model. There's also been a ton of guys who make crazy plays and can't ever get it right from in the pocket or never figure it out. They wind up being backups or wind up out of the league. So it can go any number of directions. Your best case scenario is a Jalen Hurts.
Also, to your point, though, and I think to this general point, is the thing about Jalen Hurts is his intangibles, his leadership off the field, his work ethic.
Yeah.
And he was able to develop. There were times his rookie year or his first year starting where I thought, there's no way he can progress. This is going to be a fatal flaw for a long time. And every single week, he got a little bit better at it. And you see those improvements from Sam, which is very, very encouraging. So, again, it's still 4 games left, still a lot of the evaluation still that needs to be fleshed out. But I think some of those reasons to be optimistic are Sam's willingness to improve, the leadership stuff you're talking about, the way he resonates with the guys. It's all stuff that you saw with Jalen Hurts. Now, that's not the end-all, be-all. You ultimately need to be a good football player. But I think there's enough shades there to say, hey, there's a piece here we can build around.
I think you said it well. Like, I wouldn't bet against Sam Howell. I still, like, I know it hasn't been pretty, but I would not bet against Sam Howell because I think that dude's made up of the right stuff, and I think he's got great physical talent, and we'll see ultimately where it winds up. All right, let's circle back to end where we started, the defense.
Sure.
They're playing the Miami offense, and I think that is the most important factor in this game.
Yeah.
But what did you see? I mean, no one's going to say there could possibly be any improvement when you're down 31-7 at halftime. Obviously, there's a pick six in there as well. By the way, not great for Sam. 3 straight games with a pick six. Less than ideal. That's just a great play by the defender there. But at the end of the day, defensively, they still give up a ton of points. They only forced 1 punt in the first half. Miami, even at the end of the game, I said to Mitch Tischler with his I remember because I said it out loud, 7:44 to go, and I go, Mitch, is about to be a long 7:44. Start playing on my phone a little bit, peruse Twitter, keep an eye on the game, obviously, but it's out of reach at that point. I don't think I missed much. Next thing you know, it's a 2-minute warning.
Yeah.
Miami's just able to bleed it down.
Yeah.
Miami literally got whatever they wanted. But did you see a difference at all from what it's been?
Yeah, so I thought there was more, like, because I do like a preliminary kind of like red-green on my notes when I'm watching the game, and there was much more green defensively. There was a great coverage play by Cam Curl where he's like running with where like that's a touchdown 2 weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? There's a reverse where the backside defensive end stays home and makes the tackle. KJ Henry on like a little jet sweep action, tackle for loss. Like those types of plays, I think people forget them, rightfully so, because there's a lot of bad ones, right?
Right.
But there were, and Cody Barton did some excellent, like he did this thing today, which was absolutely beautiful. I've not seen anybody play it like this. RPO action with the slide to his side. He matches the slide, then falls under the seam. It's completed, but it's like a bang-bang play. And every other team that I watch play that, it's wide open for like a 15-yard gain. So there were some really nice things that were done today. You know, guys playing gaps. I thought Casey Toohill handled the transportation stuff. They did really, really, really well. Great stuff there. But there are individually good plays, right? And this is the kind of the messed up thing about defense. Is you need to put 3 of them together, back to back. If you put 2 of them together and one's an explosive, bad drive, right?
Yep.
So I think there was a couple sequences like that. Even the one, I think, to the Tyreek touchdown, the first 3 plays in that sequences were great. The guys did the right stuff.
I mean, those touchdowns are coming on 3rd down. And I will say that's the, I think, disheartening, disappointing thing is it felt like McDaniel knew, hey, if we get to 3rd down, they're going to play man, and then we're just going to call something, and our guys are better than their guys.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it felt like. There was inevitability still in that way about it, but I feel like the inevitability came from Miami more than it did. Like, it's a combo. Obviously, it felt inevitable because this defense is not very good. But I'm very curious. Even this game is the first batch of pancakes.
Yeah,
you know what they
100%.
say about the first batch of pancakes?
Not great.
Chuck them out.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out your griddle temperature. I made pancakes yesterday. You try to figure out your griddle temperature. You're trying to get the color right. You're trying to get the recipe right. You just throw them out. To me, for like what this defense can be under Rivera, not that it matters in terms of playoffs or whatever, but in terms of the evaluations, I'm way more interested when you're not facing the best offense in the league and when you're not doing it on 1 week of coming in and trying to install it.
Yeah, and even like the PI that Benjamin St. Juste had.
I thought it was a terrible
I thought
call.
that was a good technique. I thought that's exactly what you want. And could you throw it there? Yeah. And so to see that kind of improvement and that kind of understanding, quote unquote, from the guys in the back end, I thought was a nice step. Now it's a step, and it's a long journey to get to where I think the fans, this team, everybody's expectations are regarding this defense. But there were some things that I was like, okay, this is much better than in Dallas. This is much better than whatever.
My hope is that it's playable enough to evaluate some players over the next 4 weeks. You saw some snippets today where that seems feasible. Would obviously help when you're not facing Tyreek Hill. All right, that was Take Command last night, at least part of it. If you want a little bit more analysis, as there is a little bit more to be had, you can go ahead and check it out on YouTube at 1067 The Fan. Then, yeah, in our podcast feed as well. I was trying to think, is there more on my page? There's not. If you want to watch that because you listen to it on the radio and you'd like to see Logan and I in front of our beautiful backdrop at FedEx Field, you can, at Craig Hoffman on YouTube. And, of course, the Take Command podcast available anywhere you get your pods. We will do a film review like usual tomorrow, although we are going to skew it a little bit and spend more time talking about Sam Howell, more time about Terry McLaurin than we had. And I think, Anthony, coming up at 6:15, I want to dive in a little bit more to like the EB side of this because – obviously I talked about it extensively off the top of the show, but, when it comes to like Terry specifically, some things that could/should be happening. And Ron Rivera, we were just looking through the transcript of his press conference from a little earlier today. He actually said something that I think like he meant as, I don't want to say a defense, but like an explanation for why certain things are not happening offensively. And I think it is so damning. I think it like is the point of, to an extent, what's going on with EB and this offense, but also like his entire era, the lack of urgency, the lack of understanding of like when the season starts. So we'll get to that coming up at 6:15. Coming up still on the show, we got Michael Phillips in a few minutes. He's going to be talking, of course, about the game yesterday. He's talking about we'll see what else is on Phillips' brain because he said there could be some skits and bits coming. And, Anthony, I do think it's important that we still have fun here. We're still a sports radio show.
We got to have fun, Craig. The team's not doing good on the field, so we got to find a way to enjoy ourselves while talking about this team, even though they're not doing so good.
Yeah. I just want to put a smile on people's faces, And there's only so much that we can be able to do that if we're going to talk about the team. Because if I'm describing what happened, then it's probably not going to be very smile-worthy.
Nope.
But if we can stick a joke in there every once in a while.
Yep.
If we just randomly, make stuff happen, and all of a sudden you're listening and you're just rolling along. Something like that happens. That one was, I wasn't even going to do that. I was going to be super childish and play this.
Yeah, I almost pooted on this.
But instead I hit the Price is Right theme on accident.
I like that Price is Right theme.
It is. It's so happy.
It is.
It's just, see? Now everybody's smiling.
Yes, sir.
Let's see what Michael Phillips has in store next. 2 on a Monday. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We go around the NFL coming up at 5:30. Also, just perusing more quotes from the day, trying to catch up on everything. John Allen had some interesting stuff to say on the Junkies. We might have to dive into that a little bit later as well. It's like interesting in that he said it out loud, but not interesting remotely in what he said. We'll explain later on in the show. Right now, though, it is time on a Monday for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Michael Phillips was there yesterday. I know, because I saw him with my own eyes and everything. Michael, what's up, buddy?
And it was great to see you too, Craig Hoffman. I think I saw you like early in the first quarter, and it's like, well, all right, this is over. I guess do we go home now? Do we beat the traffic? What do we do? I'm glad we stayed though. Hot take: it's fun to watch Tyreek Hill. He's pretty good.
Yeah, it's fun to watch unless you're the DB that's supposed to be on the other side of him.
Woo,
boy. That's a difficult task. It sure seems. I will say I'm pretty sure I'm not going to the San Francisco game. So like for those that don't know, I do like everyone at this point should know. We're 14 weeks into this. Like we do the pregame show. It's me and Logan. We do it from Tap Sports Bar at MGM National Harbor. It's a delightful time. Many of the people who I wind up sitting with in the press box listen on the way in. I know because they text me saying, "Hey, that was a good show," or like I don't hear from them, and I guess it was a bad one. Anyway, the point is I don't get to FedEx Field till like mid first quarter, and I think it was 17-0 when I got there yesterday, Michael. It was not. It didn't feel like I needed to be there.
It's felt better. You'd rather be doing the pregame show than the postgame show on a day like that.
That is very true.
I'll say this: it's going to be tougher and tougher to do the pregame show each week here progressively because I'm intrigued by the next two because they're both winnable. The Rams and the Jets. Not to suggest they will win, just those are games they could win. The last two, if the Niners and Cowboys come to play, of course they won't win. Depends on what's on the line there. Week 18 against the Cowboys. But I'm intrigued by the next two. Coming off the bye, you certainly got the chance to show a little fight in those next couple of games, but those are also games they could very easily lose by 20.
Right. So besides a little fight, because that would be cool, what do you think legitimately is still up for evaluation over the next 4 weeks? And what things perhaps that were up for evaluation have you made your mind up on?
Well, 4 weeks is a lot of time, right? And so if Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell really dominate these 4 weeks, that would be enough time to change opinions and change minds. It's not like a 1 week 18 performance. That's obviously not enough to do it. He can't do what he did against the Cowboys last year and everybody be like, all right, everything's good. Let's go into the off season. Like it's got to be a sustained thing for a few weeks. I am curious about this Brian Robinson injury, what that potentially means for Chris Rodriguez in terms of getting some carries, getting a chance to earn his spot and prove his worth with the new regime. I think this could be a pretty important few weeks for him. But I keep coming back to Eric Bieniemy and keep coming back to Sam Howell. Those are the main two things I'm watching here down the stretch. And, I don't know if you saw this. Ron Rivera, I guess, told the halftime reporter from Fox or the sideline reporter at halftime, we've just got to run the ball more, which I thought was a bit of a misread of a game that was 30-7 at the time. But I'm curious how the offense develops over the last 4 weeks. It's a lot. It's a long time. It's a lot of football. I'm working hard not to make up my mind about stuff just because of how long of a period of time it is.
I hear you, but my mind's made up on Bieniemy. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. And I actually think something Rivera said today is pretty damning of him and kind of his general approach to this whole 4 years, but also of Eric. And he was asked about and I don't know whether you were on the Zoom today or not, but it was the question where he was asked about retrofitting the offense to KC or just like doing something that works here. And basically it's like, do you think that Eric has found something that works for these playmakers in this group, or is he just trying to run what he ran in KC? And Ron's like, well, I think we're trying to figure that out. And I'm like, it's week 14.
Yeah.
You're 4-9. Like I know that there is a process and there's growth and development, and like I'm king nuance over here. So like no one's got to preach to me that stuff doesn't happen instantaneously. But the season started in September, Michael, and if you couldn't get it better by now, I tend to think that's not in your bag ever, or at least not in a timeline that can win you real NFL football games.
Yeah, the play that didn't work for me yesterday was the pick six. Obviously, it put 6 points on the board for the other team, so that's an easy pick. But
yeah, bold take on its surface there. Hey, that pick six, I really didn't like that for our team.
They were tipping their hands so hard, though. It shows an offense that's not self-scouting, that's not aware of its own tendencies, that's giving away a play to a degree where the other guy is just so casual about sauntering over, grabbing the ball, and taking it the rest of the way in. And Craig, I definitely agree with you. If I had to turn in the card today, it would be a no for Eric Bieniemy. Is there anything he could show you in the last four that would make you change your mind, or you just feel like, man, things are so bleak now, that's a no?
I mean, I guess if they average 40 a game over the next 4 weeks, but it's also like, then why did it take that long? Like, some of the answers seem so evident. And I think, my headline for the show, to an extent, certainly my headline for the opening segment today, Michael, was that Mike McDaniels exposed Eric Bieniemy more than he did Ron Rivera yesterday. Because you watch how Miami does it, and you're like, oh, that's what good looks like. And all they run in Washington this year is a West Coast versus Eric Coryell version of what they ran last year.
The frustrating part of it all is you do feel like the parts are better than the whole. At least I still feel that way. Like Terry McLaurin, 0 yards yesterday. Terry McLaurin's better than 0 yards. I still like Brian Robinson. Obviously, I was not sold on this offensive line at any time. But what I wrote in the Washington Times on Monday was Sam Howell might be good and Sam Howell might be bad. How can you know? How can you fairly evaluate him off of this that we've seen? And I do think the evaluation process turns now, and I think in a lot of ways Sam Howell gets to play for his future. I know that sounds weird and dark with 4 weeks left to go, but you've got a situation where they're the number 4 draft pick right now. There's going to be some really good quarterbacks up there in the top 5. You need to win a couple of games. You, Sam Howell, need to win a couple of games so that Washington picks 9 or 10. And the question is, which offensive lineman do they get? Which tight end do they get? Which skill player do they get? Not should they take a quarterback. If the conversation is should they take a quarterback, you've kind of already lost.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, too. I hadn't really thought of kind of the chess game, if you will. If Sam can play them out of top 5 range, then it actually helps him potentially have a future here. But to me, it comes down to, do you love probably Jaden Daniels out of LSU? But, maybe there's another quarterback that emerges in the process when you get deeper and, when everyone gets deeper into the tape and the consensus changes around who QB3 is. I assume Williams will be 1, Drake May will be QB2, assuming both those guys come out. And then Jaden Daniels seems like the most popular guy is 3 right now. And especially because they're going to have a top 10 pick plus that Bears pick in the second round. I feel like they could go, like, if they love Daniels, and we don't know who they is yet. Like, they hasn't been hired. So we don't know who this new GM and who the scouts and whoever is, outside of whatever Eugene Chen and his data thinks. But if they love Jaden Daniels, you have to go take him. If you love him. If you don't, I think what's so interesting is the crapshoot nature of young quarterbacks, where you look at Howell and realistically he's the 3rd best guy over the last couple of years, unless you want to put Kenny Pickett ahead of him.
I think you bring up a great point here, which is if they love somebody, you have to allow them to go get that person, which is kind of an obvious statement at face value, right? But let's rewind. Jay Gruden comes in with the mandate, fix Robert, fix RG3. And then Ron comes in, and Ron was given autonomy over that first draft, but it was understood who the owner wanted to be quarterback. And it was understood that he was supposed to, put in some time with Dwayne Haskins. That was not a condition of taking the job, but it was very much understood that he was there and the owner wanted him to be the star of the future. It is so important they do not repeat that mistake again, that the new group is told, anybody you want, you can go get. Anybody you want to get rid of, you can get rid of. We'll deal with the fallout. I just think that's so important to give them that fresh slate, give them that opportunity to say, we want you to go scout and feel good. And look, nobody's going to like hearing this. Nobody's going to like hearing this. If you're driving around, just buckle up, grab the steering wheel. You're not going to like hearing this. If they want to kick the can to 25, they should be allowed to kick the can to 25. They should be allowed to trade those draft picks for a lot of draft picks next year and ride it out with Sam Howell for a year and see how they feel and have the ammunition in 25 to do what they need to do. Nobody wants to hear that, but if this group doesn't fall in love with a quarterback and doesn't think they love Sam Howell either, they should be allowed to trade that top pick or trade those second-round picks and get some ammunition for next year to go get it in 25.
So I'm gonna present to you three options. I want you to rank them in order of like what you think. Well, I guess not what you think is best, but like likeliness. I don't know. Rank them based off your heart and your feelings, Michael.
I shall do my best.
Clearly, there's a correct order here. But whatever. The three scenarios are: Sam plays really well the last 4 games. It's obvious he's the guy. New people come in, agree, and you bolster the roster around him with those picks. So your option number 2 is you love insert quarterback here, and he's available for you, whether you have to go up and get him or you can draft him at your natural position, which might be 3rd or 4th. Then option 3 would be you're not really sure about Sam, but you're not really sure about the draft quarterback situation either, and you kick can down the road to 25, but you do the roster bolstering and find out with Sam. Like, how good do you feel about each of those scenarios?
Yep. I feel great about all 3 of those scenarios, right? That's my thing. And you know, if you were to rank them, number 1, of course, is that Sam's the guy, right?
100%.
Like that is obviously the easiest for everybody. Likelihood of that happening, less than 30%. I don't know. It's not 0. It's not 50. I want to be fair. I want to be fair to Sam, and I want to be fair to the hand he's been dealt. There's a chance he's the guy. And there's a chance he plays well down the stretch, comes back from the bye and plays really well. I think 30 is generous, but I'm going to give that to him, that there is a 30% chance that Sam Howell is the guy. He's on the roster, and that makes everything else easy. But that means there's a 70% chance he's not, which means we need to be doing this planning exercise. Part of me loves the idea of kicking the can down the road conceptually because you get your scouts in the building for a year doing their scouting at all the college games, talking to all the people. I don't love it from a fan perspective. I don't love it from I host a radio show perspective. That part's not good. But if you want to give me percent chances this team is a legit contender by 26, I think it's more than 50%. I think this is a smart group of people who are going to do things the right way. Whichever way they go, I think they're going to end up on a team that is built for the long haul.
Yeah, Michael Phillips with us, of course, 910 The Fan in Richmond, the Washington Times as well. You can read his work there. I really, I'm so in on this kick the can down the road thing as an idea, not necessarily as a strategy. Obviously, getting it figured out and having an awesome team next year would be, awesome. But I just hadn't done the mental exercise yet. But I'm so intrigued in finding out with Sam. Like, what happens if you spend a lot of money in free, $25 million on a left tackle, and you go out and I don't even know who's available, but you go get a stud left tackle, and then you draft another 2 offensive linemen and use that first-round pick on the best, whatever in the draft, whether it is a tackle, maybe you acquire the O-lineman that way, whether it's a stud tight end, Brock Bowers or someone else, whether it is, a stud defensive end to go replace Montez Sweat. You got that pick. Sweet. We'll upgrade on Montez Sweat. We'll go get the next. There's got to be another Bosa brother somewhere. Go find him. And the idea of doing that and letting a new coach come in and hopefully set up a system that is more quarterback friendly and have a roster that is more quarterback friendly. To me, unless you love one of these young quarterbacks in this draft, to me, that's actually worth it with the, now 3 minutes that I've been thinking about this to kind of mess around and find out. Because the worst case scenario is you find out it's not Sam, but you've upgraded the roster and the next QB in is someone that you can, you can win with. I guess the risk would be how often are you going to be picking in the top 10? Like, is if you bolster this roster and have a good system, are you going to wind up picking 15 again, and then you've missed your opportunity like they have so many times before?
Well, that's why Kyle took Trey Lance when he did, right? That's the explanation you've always heard out of there was they felt like it was their last opportunity before they got good to potentially get a top 3 quarterback. So they owed it to themselves to go do that because they wouldn't get that opportunity again. It didn't pan out, but you can certainly understand that logic. Now, they had been there for a little while, so it's not quite an apples to apples to this situation. But to carry out the metaphor, if Sam Howell is the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers right now, that team would be every bit as good as it is with Brock Purdy. I'm just going to say it. They would be. Sam Howell has all he's got everything Brock Purdy's got, and with that roster, I think he could manage it well. So I think it's absolutely worthwhile to upgrade the roster, see what Sam can do with an upgraded roster, and give him that opportunity to succeed, because if the guy's in the building, it sure does save you a lot of time on a lot of other things.
Michael Phillips, MP on the mic, 10 a.m. to noon on 910 The Fan in Richmond. All right, real quick, total gear switch for you because we're not going to get this in the show otherwise today, but you're a huge college football guy. This college football playoff thing is a disastrous mess. What do you make of Florida State being left out, undefeated ACC champion? Yes, they lost their quarterback, but they didn't lose a game in the ACC, and they're not in the playoff. That seems bananas.
Yeah, thank you for teeing me up, and I completely agree with you. There's this, like, they can say whatever they want to say. They killed the ACC yesterday, right? There is now no reason why Florida State and Clemson should stay in that conference. There is no reason why the better Big 12 schools should stay in that conference. They've made the statement, we are going to favor the big boys. And they copped out to a large degree too, Craig. And that's what bothers me too, because they had a tough decision to make, right? You had 3 teams that belong in the college football playoff: Washington, Michigan, and Florida State. Those 3 teams definitively belong. Florida State met every criteria. Undefeated, scheduled really hard in non-conference, went on the road and played at Florida. Neutral site against LSU, won both those games. That's everything they ask you to do. Won a conference title without their quarterback, by the way, against a really, really good Louisville defense. They did everything you asked them to do. They were deserving. So you had 3 teams in. You had to make a tough decision, by the way, and it was a tough decision. Bama was, on paper, the team you should have taken. They were better at the end of the year. You need to take an SEC team because it's a power conference, but Texas beat them. Texas beat them in Bama earlier in the year, and it's hard to ignore that as well. That's a tough decision, and I said in the lead-up, I don't envy the committee for having to make that decision between Florida and Texas. Or between Alabama and Texas. It's a really tough decision. They copped out. They copped out by taking Florida State instead, and it made me unhappy.
So your 4 would have been what?
I think I would have taken Alabama and just said, hey, look, it's the SEC. They produce the champion every year. They just beat Georgia. They're a different team than they were when they lost to Texas. We're very sorry to Texas, but that game was a long time ago. And because of that, we got to take Alabama over Texas. But I think there were 3 indisputable selections, and those were Michigan, Washington, and Florida State. They went undefeated in power conferences. They scheduled hard. They played good games. They won their conference titles. There was no grounds to disqualify any of them other than, hey, we've got a tough decision and we don't want to make somebody unhappy.
Right. To me, it just, again, highlights how stupid the system is. Like, you got the cutoff at 4 when you got 5 power conferences. That's inherently going to cause a problem. And, like, it's always, to me, been about, like, what's the cutoff, right? And if you want to make the cutoff at 1-2, in some ways that's easier, although you're really screwing yourself if there's 3 really good teams. And there was, I don't remember what year it was, but there was like 3 undefeated teams in the BCS era, and everyone was like, oh, this is a problem.
Auburn
that's
played
right.
the Natty that year, yep.
Yeah, that's right. It was like 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. But once you get lower down, do you get a team that's not as, like, is the 8th best team in the country as deserving as the first team? No, by nature, that's how it works. But if you're on the line between 8 and 9 and you wind up being 9, can you be pissed that they pick number 8? Sure. But by the same token, if you had been number 3 and you definitely could have done something to be number 3, then it's not a problem. And so it just comes down to, like, where that line is. And the farther down you get, the more teams you include, the less gripes the teams that get left out get to have. And this system with just 4, especially when you've got 5 power conferences to begin with, nevertheless, the occasional non-power 5 team or, God forbid, there's 2 good teams in one conference. I mean, Georgia's been number 1 for 2 straight years. And they get left out because they lose the SEC title game to an awesome Bama team. That doesn't seem right either. And it just highlights how silly this entire thing is.
I love 8 as a number. It gives you the 5 conference champions. Everybody wants, it's so important to protect these conference championship games. Fine, it does that. It gives you 1 small school, which is very important to me that you include a small school in this process, and then 2 wild cards so you can swoop up Georgia or whatever. The thing I'm worried about when we go to 12, Craig, Ohio State played Michigan in a game that was awesome, right? Like the stakes were so high. The pageantry was great. The play was great on both sides. I loved it. Georgia played Bama last weekend. Such a good game, and everybody knew the loser was out. Like, it was a really good game because of that. When Ohio State plays Michigan next year, it's not going to mean that. They're both going to be in the playoffs. If Georgia plays Alabama next year, similar situations, it's not going to mean that. They'll both be in the playoff. I worry that in the move to 12, we've highly diluted what makes college football great.
I 100% agree. 8's the right number. If you're the 9th best team and you have a gripe about not getting to compete for the national championship, unless there's 9 undefeateds in some year, which I don't even think is possible because, the team. then again, with all these conferences, so many teams are not going to play other teams in conferences. They're going to have like three big 102 teams, whatever number of people are in that conference now, undefeated. But point is, it's very ridiculous. 8's the right number. And as usual, college sports administrators, whether it's at the NCAA, whether it's at the schools, whether it's the conferences, they can't get it right. I don't understand how these people all have their jobs. They're all so bad at them.
And the other problem with 12 and the conference title games is, in a lot of ways, that's not 12, that's 16, which is an even bigger number and even more ridiculous.
That is also true. For more coverage of the ridiculous, this ridiculous and, other ridiculous, MP on the mic, 10 a.m. to noon. How about that for a promo? Cut that. Just air that. Man. Dude, air that down there.
You're crushing it tonight. Hoffman with a heat check. Let's go.
I'm trying my best here. We're just getting through this week. It's gonna be. We cover the Commanders and the Wizards, Michael. We get it in where we can. Anyway, the point is, MP on the mic is 10 a.m. to noon on 910 The Fan in Richmond, which, lucky enough for you, you don't have to drive all the way to Richmond to hear. You can just tune on the free Odyssey app and check that out. Or if you are traveling down I-95 for any part of your holidays, make sure you check Michael out if you're driving through between the hours of 10 a.m. and noon. And while you're not driving, read him in the Washington Times. All right. We'll see you. Michael, are we just going to do 15 minutes of bits next Monday? Or are we going to skip a week? What are we going to do on Monday?
I think we need to do 15 minutes of bits. There'll be I haven't heard yet. I don't think they'll be at the facility. I think that'll be Tuesday.
Yeah.
There's always something to talk about. We'll do some wackies. It'll be good.
Yeah. Ron speaks again on Monday. We'll see what we can come up with. All right. So we'll talk to Michael next Monday. All right. Thank you, sir.
Hey. See ya.
All right. Michael Phillips, everybody, with us on The Hoffman Show. What a delight he is. Speaking of delights, Anthony and I go around the NFL next. Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And it's kind of funny. Some days I know who's doing updates for the fan, and other days I don't. Any day that Toby Altizer is doing the updates across the hall, I know it because he just aimlessly walks the halls.
Yes, he does.
As someone who used to do updates, I understand that. It's that, or you sit in that little update studio and you just wait. You just wait for the top of the hour. You wait for news to break to rewrite something. You wait for the bottom of the hour, and you wander around. You go get some water. You know, when I used to do for the junkies with some frequency, I would just wait. I would try to like hold off on food or coffee or whatever for a certain amount of time because it was 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, can I make it to 7? Then I'm like not halfway, but I'm like decent way through my shift.
Mm-hmm.
It's early mornings, not for the faint of heart.
I can't necessarily relate because I've never done that.
You never had to work mornings in radio?
Oh, no, for Kevin Sheehan, yes.
Ooh. So when he was on 6 to 9?
Yeah, I used to wake up at like 4:30.
How long were you doing that?
It was during COVID, actually. So
do you
when we were in Silver Spring, actually,
Uh-huh.
I used to be able to wake up at like 5:15 because it was right down the road.
Yeah.
But coming over here, 4:30 every morning.
That's rough.
Get in here, and then I will have to cut audio for Kevin because he would need like history audio and
Yeah. Kevin Sheehan puts on a good show. It's just, involved.
my first show actually working with Kevin was here. Well, one of my first shows. And I didn't know how to work this board.
Oh,
like,
God.
When I tell you, like, we had shifted from Silver Spring to here, and I got in here, I'm talking about it's 5:59. I don't know what to do. I don't know what buttons to push. I don't know where Kevin is. We got on air like 3 minutes late. I was panicking.
I bet. That is a terrifying feeling.
And all I had to do was press the on button. All of these were orange. So I'm thinking, like, they're all on. I don't know.
Yeah, the orange one says off, Anthony.
Yeah, but
That's not your best moment. Also,
Yeah.
I feel like you should have gotten in earlier. Obviously, it would be nice if someone had given you a tutorial.
I mean, yeah, that was the thing, though. That was the thing. Because we had them connected. I just didn't know how to put them on air. Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
I did mornings when I worked in Dallas. I was working for ESPN Radio down there, and we had local shows starting. Actually, no, we eventually had. God, what do we have? We eventually had local shows, but it was Mike and Mike, and then Colin Cowherd's show back when Colin was on ESPN Radio and Mike existed. And so I did the updates and ran the board for those shows, but it was on Central Time. So Mike and Mike used to be 6 to 10, except for that's 5 Central. So I had it down to a science, bro. I would wake up at like 4:27, be out the door at 4:34 or whatever it was, and I could walk into that building at 4:58 because my first update wasn't until like 27 after or whatever.
Yeah.
I could walk in at like my boss knew I did. Tom Lee, if you're out there listening, I'm sorry. I was never late except for maybe one time. But like I would walk in sometimes at like 4:59:48, hit the button.
No.
I had it down, bro, because
Yeah.
I was not getting up a moment earlier.
Yeah.
But it was cool to be done by 11. I'd go home, take a nap,
That's
get
the
up.
best part.
Get up, go like hit a workout, and then it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you got no responsibilities. And you've already worked, whatever you got to do.
You got a full day ahead of you.
Yeah.
That's how, I guess there are pros and cons to it.
Yeah. And then the best part is you convince yourself that you've adjusted. You haven't adjusted.
At all.
Because the second you stop working mornings and you get back to a normal sleep schedule, your body just feels better instantly.
Exactly.
You just get used to being exhausted. Anyway, apropos of none of that, it's time to go around the NFL.
Uh-oh.
So I think I had, a 7-game lead coming into the week?
You had
on
a
the picks?
7-game week, and I'm not going to lie, I think you might have got me this week. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
All right, I guess we're going to find out. There's a bunch of close games. We both went 1-0 on Thursday. We had the Cowboys over the Seahawks.
Yes.
Your boys, that was a tight one in Tennessee.
Stressful.
Stressful. including being down in overtime. But they were able to hold the Titans to a field goal, and the Colts ultimately come back and win it 31-28, 55-yard touchdown from Gardner Minshew to win it in overtime. 31-28 the final score, despite a 100-yard day from Derrick Henry. Colts 7-5, hanging on to that final playoff spot in the AFC as of today.
Derrick Henry actually got knocked out of the game.
Yeah.
Because Zaire. So early in the game, Will Levis, he scrambled and he got helicoptered by like 3 different Colts players. But he picked up the first down, but he got up and was like, yeah. Zaire somehow helicoptered Derrick Henry on one hit. And I don't understand how it happened. But he went out there with some bad intentions, and Derrick Henry was on the receiving end.
The receiving end of the intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he had 100 yards
and 2 tuds
and 2 touchdowns on the day. Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
And then Zaire was like, no more.
He was definitely rolling. That whole game was just like ebbs and flows. Like I want to say, the Colts get like a huge go-ahead score off the block punt. And then on the next play, Gardner Minshew throws a pick 6, but it was only worth 2 points. It was crazy. It was crazy the entire game. But I'm just glad my guys pulled out the W.
They sure did. Again, that 7th and final wildcard spot currently belongs to Indianapolis. In the wow, that happened game of the day, Chargers 6, Patriots 0. What can be said about this game that hasn't already been said?
I don't think there's much to say, to be honest. 6-0, Chargers. This is the Chargers season in a nutshell, though. Too much is.
You know, Logan and I were joking on the pregame show, and I was like, the Chargers should smash them. And he's like, no, it's the Chargers. It'll be a 1-score game.
Yep.
And they sure played to the level of the other team. 1-score game. They were 1 score better. 6-0. Keenan Allen played in this game. Just not super productive.
Nope.
Nobody super productive. Herbert, 212 yards passing. Bailey Zappi was the starter for New England. I don't know, man. Why are we still talking about it? What a terrible football game. We both picked the right team.
It really just goes to show how bad their offense is, because the defense the last 3 weeks have held their teams to 10 points. The opposing teams to under 10 points. They still somehow lose.
Chargers now 5-7. Lions and Saints took a huge lead in the first quarter. Did Detroit, then had to hold on for dear life as the Saints came storming back in the second half, despite the fact that Derek Carr got knocked out of this game. Carr really playing well before he did. 17-22 for 226, a touchdown. Did have a pick. Goff, 16-25, 2 touchdowns in the game. That running game got going. Gibbs 8 for 60, Montgomery 18 for 56, got Jamison Williams a reverse, ultimately 30 carries for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And how about Sam Laporta, guy that I really wish was here? Sam Laporta, the tight end, 9 catches on 9 targets for Dan Campbell's offense, 140 yards, a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 2 catches, 49, and a touchdown as well.
Yeah, the Lions definitely got out to a huge lead in the first. I don't know what the Saints were doing. They might have been point shaving, or I don't know. That first quarter was brutal. But after that, Kamar, he turned up a little bit. I think the Saints need to utilize Taysom Hill a little bit more. Their offense, just with Derek Carr dropping back, isn't all that, explosive. So I think just getting him in, he's a gadget player, just finding more ways to utilize him, because when he's playing, he's producing. So tough loss for the Saints, but I think we all knew the Lions were going to pull this one out.
They sure did. They're 9-3 on the season. Falcons staying atop of the horrid NFC South with the Saints' loss and their win, 13-8. Yep, 13-8 over the Jets. Another quarterback benching. Tim Boyle got benched in favor of Trevor Siemian. The Jets apparently now want to go back to Zach Wilson, but The Athletic reporting that Wilson has some reservations about playing due to injury risk. because their line is terrible and the turf at MetLife and whatever other reasons he may have. Like, this looks bad, and some of the reporting is a little messy around it. People just obviously Robert Saleh came out and disputed it because of course he did. But if I'm Zach Wilson on a human level, I don't blame him. I don't want to play for the Jets anymore if I'm Zach Wilson. They're just gonna boo me off the field, and you say, oh well, play better. Like, he can't. He sucks. He's Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson apparently knows he's Zach Wilson. It's just not. He needs a fresh start. He needs to go somewhere else. Zach Wilson needs to go to like San Francisco or something. Go to QB rehab.
Or he could just sit on the bench and get an easy ride to the NFC Championship game. I mean, if he's cool with doing that, I guess.
I mean, where have guys gone in the past where they've like been able to sit and learn and then they go somewhere else? Like, where did Jameis go? I guess Jameis, was it New Orleans that he went after Tampa?
Yeah, he's in New Orleans now.
Yeah, he went to New Orleans, and right, and then I was like, did he leave and come back? No. Yeah, he went to New Orleans and he had a torn ACL. That's what it was.
Yeah, he got hurt, and that.
But like,
Geno Smith, he sat behind Russ.
Yeah, like, that's a great example, right? You go somewhere where you can sit and learn behind a good vet, which is what this year was supposed to be for Zach Wilson, sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. But you go somewhere where you're the backup, you have a great quarterbacks coach, you're in a great room, and you just sit there and shut up and learn. And that's, I think, exactly what he wants to do at this point in his career. And then see, 2 years from now if he can go out and actually play. But dude's been through a lot, and New York is a bad place to go through a lot. Not that it all, some of it, or even a lot of it hasn't been his fault, quote unquote. I don't know what his work ethic's like, whatever. But it's not his fault he was drafted second when he clearly was not ready to go in and be an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, that whole situation.
And their offensive coordinator is Nate Hackett.
That too. I didn't see so many memes about Zach Wilson. Like, even if he doesn't go out there and play, the internet has already started to troll you. So you're winning off the field and on. I mean, you're losing on the field and off the field.
He did a little too much off the field. I don't want to get into that, but
Oh, man.
If you know.
Yeah.
Cardinals and Steelers. How about the Cardinals pulling off the upset? We both got this wrong, right? So
I got the Jets wrong as well.
Okay, so I'm now one up on you for the weekend. This is my first loss on the picks. Cardinals 24, Steelers 10. It's not even like Kyler Murray had a monster day, 145 and a touchdown. But James Conner on my fantasy bench with Aaron Jones stuck in the lineup, who didn't play for Green Bay. I thought I had fixed that, Anthony.
I see you did not, because they definitely said he wasn't going to play.
Yeah,
I
just
feel for you, though.
Terrible job.
Did you lose again?
I think 2 weeks in a row I have lost because I made a substitution error.
Do I need to remind you next week?
Normally I fix it when we pick the games.
Oh, okay.
And for whatever reason, I didn't. I still have a chance. So tonight, my opponent, this is in the Hoffman Show Fantasy League. So 62 Bisons, which is owned by our guy Sean. Sean's got Trevor Lawrence and Jamar Chase and Evan McPherson. I've got Ingram and Ridley. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword because I need Lawrence to have a big night, just only to Ingram and Ridley. And if that happens, me and my 4-point lead should be okay.
I'm praying for you then, Craig, because I have Ingram in another league, and I need 18 points.
If we get 2 touchdowns to Ingram and 1 to Ridley, and that's Trevor Lawrence's night.
Speaking into existence, Craig.
And then Jamar Chase does nothing. Then I'm relying on. Can Evan McPherson miss an extra? Or no, he's Cincinnati's kicker, so I should be all right as long as they don't do anything offensively.
Yeah.
We can't get a big field goal night. That's what I'm scared of, actually, now that I think about it.
Yep.
That's the state of the Bengals. I'm more scared of Evan McPherson than I am of Jamar Chase.
How many points are you losing by?
I'm winning by 4.
Oh, you're winning by 4. Okay.
But he's got Lawrence, Chase, and McPherson. I've got Ingram and Ridley. And I would be winning by 26, almost 27, if I had just subbed James Conner, who played and happened to play well, in for Aaron Jones, who didn't play.
I feel for you, man.
A moron. Cardinals and Steelers, Conner had 2 touchdowns. The Steelers, just when we thought we could trust them, are 7-5. Dolphins, and by the way, Kenny Pickett out 2 to 4 weeks with an ankle injury. Dolphins and Commanders, we talked about that. We both picked the Dolphins. Shekaruski. Broncos and Texans. Who did we wind up picking in this game? We went opposite directions, right?
I chose the Broncos. You chose the Texans.
Let's go. How about the day that Nico Collins had, who, by the way, had to step up for his brother Tank Dell, went down with a broken leg. He is out, obviously, for the year. But Nico Collins, 9 for 191 from C.J. Stroud. Damian Pierce, nice little touchdown on the day on a 22-yarder. That was most of his yardage. But Stroud, 17 of 28 for 274 and a touchdown. Russell Wilson, 3 picks on the day. Russ cooked, but Russ burnt the meal.
He threw 3 interceptions all in the second half. And Craig, at the end of the game on the line, he scrambles, gets the first down. They have like first and goal from the 6 or like the 5, whatever it was. Another interception. Couldn't believe it, man. I thought this was a game-winning drive. The Broncos were going to continue soaring, and Russ let us down.
Jimmy Ward with the game-ending pick. That puts the Texans at 7-5, the Broncos at 6-6, and we'll have large ramifications in the Hoffman Show NFL tier rankings, which we'll have to probably do Friday because I'm not here on Thursday. Panthers, Bucks. Panthers made it interesting, but alas, interception at the end of this one for Bryce Young. Baker Mayfield, 202, a touchdown and a pick. Bryce was clean on the interception route until that end, but 15 of 31, so under 50% completion, 178 yards on the day. They rushed the ball a ton, which is definitely the formula for them. Chuba Hubbard, 25 for 104 and 2 touchdowns. Rashad White, nice job at the end, sealing it as well. We're gonna get a big gain, get the first down, and then get down. And oh, by the way, Mike Evans is still awesome. 7 catches for 162 and a touchdown.
Yeah, Mike. I didn't think Mike Evans had a slant 75 yards to the crib, still in his bag. Year 10. Also, this is his 10th straight 1,000-yard season. So Mike Evans just letting everybody know he still got it. He still got it.
Got it. Meanwhile, Rams, they still got it. Stafford still got it. 22 of 37, 279, and count them, 1, 2, 3 touchdowns. Kyron Williams, another big day as well, 21 for 88 and a touchdown. Your boy Puka Nacua, 4 for 105 and a score. Kupp scored in this one as well. And Joe Flacco, yes, playing for the Browns, a big interception late. Super costly, allowed the Rams to kind of extend out their lead in the fourth quarter. Ultimately, a 16-point fourth quarter for L.A. Big win for the Rams, who are now 6-6. Browns suddenly falling all the way down to 7-5.
Uh-oh, watch out for them Rams. Watch out for them Rams.
They are they're playing good. I mean, if they had just not lost Stafford in the middle of the season, they'd be.
And Kyron Williams. Losing him for 4 weeks really hurt.
Great point. They're on a 3-game win streak, and they're currently they're tied for the final playoff spot, but due to tiebreakers and stuff, they are out of it. But they are tied with Minnesota and Green Bay. Seattle's also tied with them as well. So some of this will get settled head-to-head. Obviously, the Commanders' next game is against the Rams 2 weeks from now. Game of the day turned out to be not much of a game at all. 49ers go on the road and curb stomp the Eagles, handing them their second loss of the year. Monster day for Debo, finds the end zone multiple times. McCaffrey, 93 yards and a touchdown as well. He's San Francisco's first 1,000-yard rusher since Frank Gore in 2014. That was the longest streak in the NFL without a 1,000-yard rusher. But the Eagles just had nothing for San Francisco. 42-19 the final. And ever since that bye week when Trent and Debo got healthy, this has been the best team in the NFL, has San Francisco.
Craig, you said it the best. They curb stomp the Eagles. They is out there standing on business. Standing on business. Man, the 49ers are scary, Craig. I don't think there's a team in the NFL. Let me see who you
Who I picked to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, who you picked? Did you pick the 49ers?
I sure did.
Oh, man.
Feel pretty good about it right now.
Yeah, I would too. I can't necessarily change my choice. Oh, I had the Eagles. Oh,
not that that's a bad pick.
they'll see each other again.
I tend to think that they will.
That was crazy, though. They beat them almost a 30-piece.
I definitely think that the
Here we go.
like the regular season nature of kind of just being due. I mean, the Eagles were finding ways to win every way from Sunday.
Yep.
I think this is their third game in 13 days. They played on an overtime game in between then. Like, you get on even rest, you get on everything else in the playoffs, back in Philadelphia again. I would feel a lot worse about the 49ers' chances. I felt pretty good about it. But I also think there's something to this. Logan, when we were previewing this game on Sunday on the pregame show, he's like, the matchup's not good for Philly. And, you know, Debo said last year, if Brock had played, it would have been a very different game than the NFC Championship game. And everyone, of course, is like, hey, bro, you can't really say that. Like, that's not what happened. And they beat you. They get to go to the Super Bowl, quit whining. But realistically, like, what Kyle does schematically is a bad matchup for this Eagles defense. And that's something that they're going to have to deal with in the playoffs, presumably, when these two teams play again, because they are the two best teams in the NFC. Obviously, Detroit's trying to get in there, and so are some others, but these are the two best teams in the NFC. They're probably going to play again. Mm-hmm. It'll be awesome when they do. And Philly's going to have to do some stuff different defensively because they can't do what they've tried to do. Because you see, even when they play Washington, like, certain teams just match up really well with them, and Kyle is absolutely one of them with what he runs in San Francisco. By the way, speaking of the Eagles defense, they do sign former All-Pro Shaquille Leonard from the Colts. Not the player he used to be, but we'll see if he can make a difference for Philadelphia moving forward. Wacky end to the game last night in Green Bay. Chiefs probably should be at least in overtime. There's they get Isaiah Pacheco, who's their best player last night, 18 for 110 and a touchdown. He gets ejected late in that game. That's obviously hurts them. They have a Hail Mary that there's probably PI on. There's PI on most Hail Marys. This one seemed particularly egregious as Travis Kelce is tackled across the face of the ball before he has a chance to jump. And that is even less controversial than Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who gets tackled on a play before he has a chance to catch what would have been a walk-in game-tying touchdown, extra point pending. So Chiefs certainly have a lot to gripe about, but at the end of the day, they scored 19 points. Their offense, which looked like it found something the week before against Las Vegas, back on the struggle bus. Their defense doesn't hold up as Jordan Love looks fantastic. 3 touchdowns on the night, no picks. And KC, being the scariest team in the AFC, suddenly feels a little less scary.
Yeah. Can't leave the game in the hands of the refs. But I will say MVS got put in a chokehold on the 2-yard line. That was ridiculous. The Travis Kelce one, as you said, most Hail Marys are PI. I don't think you called that one.
Probably not, but you could have.
Yeah. But I think Jordan Love, he showed some promise yesterday, but he's been doing this all season, Craig. 1 week he looks really
He's a
good.
young player. Like, that's the thing, is inexperience makes it hard. And this is what we're seeing with Howell. Is like, when you haven't played a bunch, some weeks you see it really well and you can showcase your talent, and other weeks are not good. I think it's hard with Love because they got to make a contract decision on him.
Yeah.
I just don't know what you do with that. That's why you got 4 more weeks. Jags tonight up to 10-point favorites against the Bengals. We're both on Jacksonville. Quickly, Anthony, before we get to our pick 6, coming up at the top of the hour, how did we do on the picks? I feel like I actually did very well.
As you did last year, you only had 2 wrong choices. You went 10-2. And I went 8-4. Wasn't too bad, but, I thought the Broncos were going to be able to do what they should have done. But, they didn't.
Back on a winning track for your boy. We'll see what happens tonight. I would love to have an 11-2 week. And then, obviously, we'll pick the next week on Friday. Sans a Commanders game. Doesn't matter. We'll still pick them. Coming up on Friday. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, our pick 6 at 6, we identified 6 players / 1 coach who we thought would have the biggest impact on Sunday. How'd they do and how did they impact the game? We will discuss next on the Team 980. Anthony, I thought we talked about this.
We are winning, Craig. We are winning off the field.
No. By what count?
What you mean? We're inching closer and closer, or I guess we're getting closer to solidifying our spot in next year's NFL draft and having a top 5 pick. That's
Okay.
winning off the field, baby.
By losing on the field.
Yes.
I don't think that's what Bruce meant.
Oh.
Hey, bub, we're just winning off the field. We're winning on and off the field.
Yes.
I'm trying to find this Trinity Rodman Millie Rock for you.
Millie Rock. Ooh.
She scored for the U.S. this weekend, and they're friendly. Let's see if this is it real quick.
Was it sturdy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to wait. No, go back. Go back. Oh, YouTube, you're killing me.
Oh, you lost it.
I did. Oh, there we go. Okay. Whew. All right. I'm going to send this to Anthony while he hits the button to get us started on the pick six. Because he's ready to do that.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is time!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their #1 fan.
Millie Rock review coming up at 6:45. Don't forget before real things, Anthony. Very important. We're gonna have you review Trin's Millie Rock.
I got you.
Okay. As for right now,
Number 1.
you, sir, said the most important person on Sunday would be Ron Rivera, especially defensive coordinator Ron Rivera. I'm not going to say that you were wrong.
Yeah.
His defense sure did give up some stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was necessarily his defense thing, but, I mean, maybe more GM Ron. I don't know. What did you think? Because you've left some notes here in the rundown that I think are interesting, and I don't know that I agree with them.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think it was all JDR and Brent Wieselmeyer who was behind, the defense's poor play. To be honest, I think it was all of them as a collective, because JDR and Wieselmeyer, whether they're here or not, they're not the people holding back this unit. We just overestimated the talent that we have on this, this roster, and we've been talking about it all season long. And Ron, with him stepping in, I don't necessarily think he went about, fixing everything. It was supposed to be, simplified, so that the guys can understand it. And guess what? It still didn't work. So,
well, you could be simple and still bad.
Yeah, that too.
The first touchdown of Tyreek Hill, they lined it up pretty simple, man to man, and they lost. Later in the game, the second touchdown of Tyreek Hill, I don't think that coverage is that complicated.
Yeah.
They screwed it up, and they lost. Like, you can still lose, and they faced a team that is impossible to prepare for. This is the biggest mismatch coordinator-wise, maybe in the whole league. You have an old-school, super simple defensive coordinator who, by the way, is trying to install his stuff and try to make it as easy and digestible as possible in 1 week. I know they had the mini bye, but they don't get to talk to the players until they get back in the building, which they aren't there the whole weekend. So they came back and they did the best they could. Like, I think they have probably, I'd be curious to watch the tape, but my guess is the call sheet was pretty simple. They don't have players that generate pass rush. There's only so much they could do. And a lot of that, though, stems from the fact that Del Rio implemented something that didn't work, and Ron's having to try to undo it in week 13 against the Miami Dolphins. And Visselmeyer, like, the technique and all the stuff, they can't undo and teach everything. They're trying to tweak off what's already there to try to make it palatable. But realistically, like, this is, like, to say it wasn't Del Rio and Visselmeyer, like, it was largely those guys, because it's just the stink doesn't wear off that quickly. It's 1 week. Okay. And these guys were working with these players all off-season long, all training camp, and all season, and they never could get it right. And Rivera, I mean, there is some stuff that they did better. I know it doesn't really look that way on the scoreboard, but Logan's first pass through the game when he was watching it live, he's like, you see a couple of things where they're able to do some things a little bit faster, a little bit better than they have in the past. And to me, I'm much more interested in the final 4 games than this one. This is a total throwaway for me defensively because of the opponent. But we'll see. And also, by the way, all those guys, Rivera obviously very included, they helped pick the players too. Yep. So that seems relevant.
Number 2.
Percy Butler. Second Tyreek Hill touchdown is not a good look for him. He's not remotely close. Like, you're the deep safety there. Deeper than the deepest is the rule. Tyreek Hill got deeper than you. The first one is not on him. He makes a nice play later in the game. Like, the problem with Percy Butler is he plays a lot of good football. Again, PFF had him as one of the highest grade players on the Commanders, and like a grade in the 70s, not even like, which is green. Like, that's not a bad day. If your entire team is in the 70s, you win the football game. The problem is the plays that are bad for him are like really bad and consequential. And that's just not a way you can play safety in this league. So if you're going to have bad plays, have them be small hiccups that are correctable within the play. Do not have them be you are the guy that's supposed to be deeper than the deepest and you are not, or you're the last player on run support and you miss a tackle. Can't do that every single week. It's unplayable football. And that's the Percy Butler story.
Number 3.
Sam Howell was your pick. Bold, Anthony.
Number 3 was Sam Howell, and Sam didn't have a good game. Like, he just didn't. This was a third straight game where he had a pick 6, even though the play that Van Ginkel makes was a hell of a play. Also, he's still, holding on to the ball a little bit. Now, some of that does have to do with receivers not getting over as quick as they should. But still, it's just the fact that, he's still getting hit at a crazy amount. But my biggest takeaway from watching Sam that this game was that he showed that he's an effective runner. He proved that he can be a bit of a playmaker. So yeah. I'm still highly encouraged about what I've seen from Sam, but there's still just more, and I think 4 games is more than enough sample size for us to continue to evaluate him.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the next couple of weeks look like for him. This Miami defense is actually pretty good. They have great players on the back end. They get 24 pressures in the game, which is a lot. Considering they got 24 pressures on, I think it was 55 snaps. Like, sheesh, man. It's a lot of pressure. And I don't think the offensive line was good. Chris Paul was like fairly terrible in this game. And I think the thing is, like, this offense feels very predictable and non-explosive, and so you have DBs that just sit on stuff, and this zone match stuff that a lot of these really good teams play. And by the way, the guy who kind of started that was Vic Fangio, the Dolphins defensive coordinator. Yeah. It really crushes this system, and some of this is the receivers themselves, but like, they're running the routes sometimes as designed, and defensive backs are matching it. It's like, what do you want them to do? So I think Sam played okay. I think Sam needs to be better on schedule. They haven't been good on schedule in a long time, and sometimes that is him getting the ball out now or throwing with more anticipation. There are times where if he just throws the ball out into space, like a guy's going to run open if he doesn't look open at the time of, the decision. You have to trust that the space is there. So sometimes it's on Sam. Sometimes it's on the O-line giving up quick early pressures. He still does vacate clean pockets too often. There's one play that I saw like a reverse angle, and I'd be curious to ask Logan about it tomorrow when we take command, and we often watch some tape together before we do. Like Sam looks like he drops back to his right. And like instead of dropping straight back under center, and sometimes that's by design, but the pocket is like even.
Yeah.
And he just kind of drops back into pressure, and it's one of the sacks that Wiley gives up. But like if you were to take Photoshop Sam out of the photo, it looked like a clean pocket. So like why is Sam floating that way? Did he see a flash of color to the left side of the pocket and fade right and then wind up running into a sack? So there's still plenty of like very nuanced stuff to get to. I don't love the play calling. The receivers are not killing it. The offensive line is not playing well. It's just hard to evaluate him right now. Quickly, the last three.
Number 4.
Brian Robinson. He was very, very good until he got hurt. I think it's interesting that Rivera was like, yep, he felt a hamstring and we didn't want to risk it. It shows you how important he is for the future of this team, but also how out of it they are. So B-Rob. And the running game in general, they ran the ball a ton yesterday, which is weird in a game you're down 31-7 at halftime, but I guess I don't know what to make of it.
Number 5.
Terry McLaurin. We talked about Terry quite a bit already. We'll continue to talk about him, I think, more as the week goes on. I don't know that he's doing a bad job of getting open. I think he's doing a bad job. Like, he is not open often in times where Sam has to throw. So there are times where he's winning, but it's taking too long because it's a long developing route and the pressure or the protection doesn't hold up. Or like, I think there's a couple plays at times where like he's coming at, there's one in particular where I remember he's coming out of a bunch and Jahan's just too slow in front of him. Like, get out of Terry's way. You got to understand you can't hop, skip, and a jump off a line if you're the head of a bunch because you're screwing up everyone behind you. And so that, and then like the play calling of just not getting him the slants, not getting him a touch on a screen. Shoot. Hand him the football on an end around or on one of these little touch passes. You watch all the ways that Miami gets their playmakers the ball, and it just drives me bleeping bonkers that Terry can't get some of those.
Yeah, I think you perfectly said everything.
All right, on to
Number 6.
Jamin Davis. Jamin played an okay football game yesterday. Could have been a lot worse if on the Tyreek Hill first touchdown, Tua had thrown Devon Achane instead because he smoked Jamin off the line. But generally speaking, like Jamin had a couple tackles for loss. He continues to probably be the best playmaker on this defense. He's not perfect. He, to me, is a part of the future for sure. But you'd like him to be in the bottom half of your defensive skill players. Like, if you rank your defenders 1 through 11 and Jamin Davis is like your 9th best player, you're going to be a really good defense. If he's like your 2nd best player, which feels like what he's been this season, I don't even know which of the defensive tackles is first, if even they are. If Jamin's your best player, like, you're not very good, and that's what this team is. All right, when we get back, I want to talk a little bit more about Eric Bieniemy and something that Ron Rivera said today about EB in this offense that I think he meant as a defense, but to me is offensive, if you will. It's next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We'll recap some of the top stories around the league coming up in what's trending at 6:45, and actually take a peek ahead tonight to the NBA's in-season tournament coming up at 6:30. Anthony, it's time for the tournament.
It is time for show.
You probably don't even get that reference. The tournament.
I don't. I was trying to figure out where you got it from, but
so back in the day, the guy who ran the Masters, I think his name was Hootie Johnson, which is just old Southern white dude named Hootie.
Yeah.
Ran the Masters golf tournament, but he said tournament.
The tournament.
It was like
is he American?
Cartoons. Yeah, just very Southern.
Oh,
like. There's different kinds of Southern accents, and there's kind of this very proper, it's most associated with Charleston, old Charleston, South Carolina. The proper. No, that's too British.
Yeah, I was about to say that's giving British. That's why
I could get into it if I really needed to, but my brain's not working there. I'm also trying to make sure I nail this Eric Bieniemy take in a second. The point is, he would say the Masters tournament, the proper.
And you said his name was what one more time?
I think it was Hootie Johnson.
Hootie Johnson. All right. While you're giving your Eric Bieniemy take, I will be looking up Hootie Johnson.
All right. Excellent. I also might not have that name right, but I'm pretty sure that was.
I'm gonna find it.
Okay. Anyway, apropos of none of that, we'll talk about the NBA's in-season tournament coming up at 6:30. So, I am ready to declaratively say Eric Bieniemy, not the guy moving forward for the Commanders. I am just thoroughly unimpressed with what they've done offensively. And the short version, the super harsh take, if you listen to the show over the last year, and specifically a year ago, as the Scott Turner era was coming to an end, and a lot of the criticism that mounted of Scott is, for Eric, he is running a West Coast version of what Scott Turner ran. There is not a lot of motion. There is not a lot of moving receivers around. There's not a lot of formation usage to create advantages. There's not a lot of, I don't want to say force feeding your star players, but creating genuine opportunities for your star players that ensure that they're going to get the football. And that is a philosophical difference that I have with a lot of coaches who just say, hey, we have good schemes. We know that these concepts work. Let's just run them. And our X receivers are X receiver, our Z receivers are Z receiver, our slot guys are slot guy, our tight ends are no. I like moving pieces around. I like if I have a really good tight end to see what happens if I put him out as my X receiver and seeing if I can get a matchup on a linebacker out in space. If I have something that I think is an easy completion over the middle to my slot receiver, why not put my lead dog receiver there? Why not take my X receiver and line him up in the slot and say, hey, you can run this route from here, and you're going to get a good ball. And you might, by the way, get a worse matchup. You might get their nickel corner who's not as good as the number one corner who's been dogging you all day on the outside. There's just things that you should do as part of a good offense, I think, in 2023 that also mess with the rules of what defenses do and mess with some of the things that have, over the years, been developed to combat these more static offenses that I don't think Eric Bieniemy does. But there's also kind of a timeline of adaptation issue that to me is an enormous flaw. And it drives me, frankly, nuts to even hear Ron Rivera say what he said today about EB. Anthony, the question is not in this bite by any chance, is it?
No, I didn't include it. You
okay.
want it?
If you have it readily accessible right now, if not, I will summarize. You got it? Yep. No.
Nope.
Okay. All right. I'll summarize. No worries. I didn't ask you for it. That's not a fine on Anthony. If anything, it's a fine on me for exposing a potential miscommunication there. Also, I didn't think that I would want the question until right now. The question was, is Eric Bieniemy running what he ran in Kansas City, or is he actually fitting a scheme to what the Commanders have here?
Our portion of it out, just making sure I think what we're trying to do is try and figure that portion of it out. Just making sure we can do certain things and certain elements. I mean, we've run the ball a little more effectively lately, and there's been a little bit more of an emphasis on that as well. And again, as we just work through it, I think again you see some of those things. But again, it does come down to us executing and making sure we're getting the right calls out.
What do you mean we're trying to figure that out? It's now week 14. You're 4-9. You're all but eliminated from playoff contention. You've secured yet another non-winning season. We're out of time. You needed to figure that out. I would give you till October. As a new OC in this, installing your stuff, if you all of a sudden were like, hey, we had a good training camp, we're still growing, we're going to try to compete these first couple of weeks, and then you hit your stride and you roll through October, November, December, and on into January, and hopefully you can play late into January, that's fine. But these games count, and they count for the end of your regime here. And if you think that you have a football team that needed to run the football more as a head coach, I'm Ron Rivera, where the hell were you in August? Where were you in May when you didn't practice running the football? We've run the ball better as of late. Okay, that's nice. When you're down in a bunch of games and you are down in your season, like, it's a little late. They didn't emphasize it in the offseason. They didn't run it at all. And I liked some of the stuff they were doing philosophically, but I voiced concern about them not doing any run work. I asked Bieniemy and Rivera, and I asked those guys about it, and they were basically like, we get the work in the classroom. We're fine. Clearly, they're not fine. They've figured out how to run the ball effectively now because teams are surprised when they do it, but they're one of the last in the league in attempts. They don't even try. And the result is you don't get the kind of defenses you see when a team respects your ability to run it, even though they're averaging like 4.6 a carry. And by the way, they can't score. And that's to me, the biggest indictment of this offense is last year they, I think, finished averaging 20.5 points per game. So scoring offense, they were bottom third of the league, and they were averaging just over 20.5 points per game. This year, they are in the bottom 10 of the league. Actually, they might be just outside the bottom 10. Let's see. Patriots are last. The Patriots are averaging 12.3 points per game. Yikes. The Giants are averaging 13.3. Imagine how low that number would be if they didn't do what they did to the Commanders. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So they're the 12th worst team in the league. They're 20th, and they are averaging 20.1 points per game. 20.1 after the 15 that they dropped the other day. Last year, I beg your pardon, they're averaging 20.5 going into the day. They were 18.9 last year. So if they get shut out by San Francisco and are scoring around the same amount of points that they have been the last couple of weeks in some of these other games, they ain't going to be that far off that 18.9 number. And that's ultimately why EB was brought in. They didn't produce enough. And while they're producing more, I would say they're doing it with significantly better quarterback in Howell over Heineke, and especially over what Wentz was for them last year. And the results are just not there. And meanwhile, you have players like Dotson and McLaurin, who you've invested majorly in, that aren't features of your offense, are having way worse seasons. And in Terry's case, I mean, Jahan's a second-year player, but in Terry's case, the worst season of his career, coming off arguably the worst game of his career. And it's just frustrating because it seems like there's so many easy things they could do, so much low-hanging fruit to be better. And so I'm out. Like, we'll see what happens over the next 4 games. I hope we get a good look at Sam and gets to play more on schedule and on structure, and we get to see him operate like that. And it just doesn't feel like a chicken with his head cut off to get anything going. The run around Sam, make a play offense. But I'm good. I'm good on that moving forward. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live on the free Odyssey app. And to kind of wrap that up too, by the way, part of that is the speed at which it needs to happen. If you don't have the urgency to get it done and try to win your games now, and you're like, oh, this is a multi-year install. No. Too many other coaches have done it quickly. And that to me is what's super frustrating. Anyway, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, a preview of tonight's NBA action in the in-season tournament quarterfinals. A very important Millie Rock review in 10 minutes. Also, real things. Also, Anthony, tomorrow night, I'm very excited for Hard Knocks.
Oh, because the
Dolphins.
Commanders, Dolphins.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to watch it because I know Tyreek was definitely on the sideline talking some trash. Because after his second, 60-yard touchdown, first of all, the Tua throw, makes is perfect.
Well, that's
Perfect
the
pass.
funny thing about that one is,
He wasn't even out of his break.
well, Tyreek, it looked like it was a bad ball.
Oh.
And Tyreek was like, I ran the wrong route. But Tyreek is dumb fast enough that he was able to flip, get on the other shoulder, find the ball, and have enough separation to still score and not get caught from behind. And also, Tua did a great job of hanging it up there so that Tyreek had the time to do that. Ridiculous ball from Tua.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to watch it because I haven't watched any of the Dolphins in-season Hard Knocks.
Oh,
but I'll watch
the
tomorrow's.
first 2 episodes were good.
I'll
First
watch.
2 episodes were very good. Definitely worth it, and I'm excited to see the Commanders get the.
You're excited for that, huh?
I mean, I want to see what it was like on the sideline. I'm also curious what the conversation between McDaniel and Rivera was after the game. Because Ron told a story last week that Mike, at one point in his career when he was younger, was trying to get into this, wrote letters to a bunch of NFL head coaches, and Ron responded. So I'm sure that there is some mutual respect and appreciation from McDaniel. Also, probably somewhere deep inside him that he would never say into a microphone, an appreciation for how simple that defense was to destroy. Tonight in the NBA, TNT's got the action from Indianapolis and then Sacramento for the NBA's in-season tournament. So these are the quarterfinals. Everyone now outside of the group play, so most teams obviously eliminated, Wizards included. Because of that, they then got the rest of their schedule. So Wednesday, they will take on the 76ers at home. Joel Embiid coming to town with a 32-point per game, 11 rebound per game stat line so far this season. Definitely steamrolling towards MVP contention again. And then they'll also play on Friday in Brooklyn. So that'll be a fun one to watch. Nets rolling around 500 this year. So for the teams that are in it, though, you get a game tonight for the semis. And the semis are the games that are in Vegas. There's 2 tonight, 2 tomorrow. Celtics and Pacers gets us started tonight, Anthony. And the Pacers have been one of the, obviously in the in-season tournament, they have been one of the more pleasant surprises all year long. Or they've been one of the more pleasant surprises there, playing really well in the in-season tournament. But they've also been, I think, a pretty pleasant surprise all year long. They are putting up a ton of points. They play super fast. And that gives them a chance. Night in and night out. I mean, some of the scores in these games are crazy. They just played back-to-back games against Miami. In Miami, they lost the first one 142-132, and they won the second one 144-129. They played a game against the Hawks earlier this year that they won 157-152.
And they also put up 140 on us, right, opening night?
Yeah, I mean,
was that what it was?
They've had 150 points either scored by them or against them. Or let's go 140. 1, 2, 3. That's a 134. 4. That's 4 and 5. The Hawks game, both teams were over. 6, 7 times this year.
Wow.
Either they or their opponents scored 140 because they just get up and down the floor like crazy, which could be really fun tonight. Can Boston slow them down?
Yeah.
Or do they just be like, well, we'll run with you and we'll run you out the gym?
If I'm a betting man, I'm taking the over in this contest. But
the over under is 245 and a half.
So my gosh! Now I'm scared.
You're gonna have to. If one of them puts up 140, you're probably good.
Oh yeah.
But that's like a what? That's like a 120 to or 125, 120 type of game.
Yeah, I mean the Celtics like to get out and run as well. I don't know. This gonna be an interesting game. I just feel like the Celtics, though, they have the experience. They'll be able to lock in defensively. I think that's the only thing the Pacers are missing. But you add a guy like Bruce Brown to, bring that defensive intensity, but you need more of it, from everybody. And
just better defensive execution. I mean, they don't have good defenders.
Yeah.
which is why like they're an interesting trade team for me. Like, do they try to pull something where they finally ship out Miles Turner, and try to get someone who's got Turner's a good shot blocker at the rim, but like you try to get like real defensive presence.
Yeah.
Pelicans and Kings is the other game tonight. Zion starting to round into form, 23.5 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, 4.9 assists. They were rolling until CJ McCollum had his issue, and McCollum is coming back soon. I don't know if he's back. He's back.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. He came back late last week. Meanwhile, Kings have not quite picked up where they were last year, where they were the 3 seed, but they're playing good ball. They're 11-7 on the year. De'Aaron Fox averaging over 30 a game. This one should be really fun. Like, low-key, super fun is like the changing of the guard happens in the Western Conference.
Yep.
These are two teams that are ready to try to take the mantle.
Yeah, I like this matchup a lot. I'm just really excited to see Zion, on the court. He's trusting the plan, the process that they put in place for him. And the Pelicans are getting healthy. Last year, when Zion and B.I. and CJ, they were at the top of the West. So this is no surprise that, they're doing so good in the NBA in-season tournament. To be honest, if they're the underdog, I'm going with them to win this game.
Knicks and Bucks tomorrow, Suns and Lakers, the games tomorrow. So those will be fun. Those will be those are also TNT games. So the quarters all on TNT tonight and tomorrow.
I think Stephen A is going to be I think the ESPN crew is also joining the NBA TNT crew.
Are they really?
Yeah, for these in-season tournament games.
That'll be interesting.
It will be very interesting.
There will be fireworks in the studio.
Yes, probably real things. Material
that's probably true.
Yes.
Which brings us to the end of the show. Real Things is next, as well as a very important review by Anthony Haney of a Trinity Rodman Millie Rock. That's next. After what's trending. Tonight, Monday Night Football, Cincinnati, Jacksonville. Of course, it is Jake Browning, not Joe Burrow. And the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Jacksonville. 10-point favorites at this point are the Jags. Just mentioned the in-season tournament. That is the only NBA games both tonight and tomorrow night. Semifinals, by the way, Thursday in Las Vegas. Former Colts linebacker Shaquille, a.k.a. formerly Darius Leonard, but now Shaquille Leonard, joins the Eagles over the Cowboys. He has not been quite the player he used to be when he was an All-Pro, but still as one of the NFL's leading turnover creators over the last 5 years. College hoops, Arizona, now the new number 1. That is what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up tomorrow on the show, Anthony, it's Tuesday. What do we do on Tuesdays?
We definitely have Overreaction Tuesday with Big L.
Right. We have Vibe Check, which is... That'll be fun.
Yeah, definitely got Vibe Check. What else is on Tuesday?
Like, do we have a usual guest on Tuesday that I'm forgetting about? We do Take Command. No, we don't do Take Command.
Linnell's the only person that we have on Tuesdays.
Yeah. Okay. And we have, is it Maryland tomorrow? Are we going to 7 o'clock 2 straight days?
Oh, that's what I literally just pulled up.
Are we going to bless the people for 3 straight hours? Are the bosses and the scheduling gods going to allow us 3 full hours of radio, 2 straight days?
I'm having a hard time reading the schedule. I'm not gonna lie.
How hard is it? It's a spreadsheet, bro.
I know.
Is it just not opening for you? What's going on over there? How hard could it be? You need me to pull it up? Because I can't leave the people in flux. We can't be doing that. Let's see. Tomorrow. Let's see. The week of 12/4. That is correct. Tonight, following us, we have Talking Terps with Coach Willard. And then eventually after that, we will join the Bengals and Jags right before kickoff. So, no, you won't miss any of the game. And then tomorrow, it's just a regular old Hoffman Show from 4 to 7, and then BetMGM tonight.
Yep.
Penn State and Terps. By the way, Doc will be in on Wednesday and Thursday. Doc will be in on Wednesday. Linnell will be in on Thursday.
Yes, sir.
And when you get 3 full hours of Linnell, you only get 2.5 of Doc. So apologies to the people, because obviously that's everyone wants full Doc. And then, bro, the Wizards and Nets play at 7:15 or at 7:30 on Friday. So pregame at 7:15. I got 3 shows this week, and they're all 3 hours.
You gotta love it then, Craig.
Not shortchanging anybody. Certainly not myself.
Yes, sir.
And then we got to get it in now though, because there's I think the day before the Friday before Christmas, we only have like a half-hour show, or like one of those days that week. Because
no way, a half hour.
Yeah, Georgetown plays like a 4:30 game or something, or a 5 o'clock game or something.
I won't know what to do with myself, Craig.
I don't know. If I were you, I'd offer Essig $20 and tell him to stay. I can do the show from home. You can't do the show from home.
You're right.
If I were you, I'd offer Matt Essig. I'll offer Matt Essig $20 for you.
I gotta look into this.
You probably should just ask our boss to do that for you. You save yourself some money. And
that too.
Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense for you to come in for 30 minutes.
Yeah,
we can figure that out. Anyway, all right. Without further ado, U.S. Women's National Team played Saturday. Trinity Rodman, goal and an assist. The Washington Spirit star, playing well in the red, white, and blue. Very blue, the uniforms this weekend. And after she scored, she hit the Millie Rock. Hit a Millie Rock. The Millie Rock. Either way, it works. Anthony, rate the Millie Rock.
So it was definitely sturdy. Like, I feel as though when you do the Millie Rock, it has to be sturdy. You got to be on beat. And she was really into it. I seen the passion, coming like all in her face. I saw it all. So I would give it an A++, to be honest.
A++.
And they added the music over it, which was...
Yeah, the YouTube cut that I sent you.
Yeah.
What was it in that cut is her teammate, Mia Fishel, matching her energy.
Oh, my
which
God.
You can see from the reverse angle. Wow! And just, double sturdy Millie Rock.
Craig, can we see your Millie Rock?
No. It's a new generation. And I don't think I'm...
It's real
I know
simple,
my role
Craig.
in it.
Move the shoulders a little bit. Yeah. Ha. One more time. Yeah.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
Before I hit these clips, Anthony, I'm going to remind you of a key to life.
Yes.
The key to life, or a key to life, is to star in your role.
Oh, okay.
I host the show. You hit the Millie Rock.
Got you.
This was incredible over the weekend. Our friends of the show, Noah and Ian Eagle, of course, Ian, longtime CBS broadcaster and more, has been doing the play-by-play for the New Jersey and now Brooklyn Nets for 25 years. Then his son, Noah, who has come on the show, is also a play-by-play broadcaster, and he actually is doing a couple of Nets games this year, including eventually for Ian, specifically when Ian does March Madness. So there's like a plan later in the year, an Eagle succession plan. But there was a game that I think due to football responsibilities on Saturday night, Noah made his Yes debut. And so on Friday, before Ian left for his football assignment, Noah joined the broadcast, and Sarah Kustok, the color analyst, was ready to interview him. But Noah had a headset of his own, and he kind of just decided his time was now.
Did you ever think that you and your dad will both be having yes on your mic flags, both calling the games?
I don't think so. You know, I spent so much time watching him. I just always thought that would be the setup, and I've enjoyed it. And to be here is pretty special, as Dinwiddie brings into the front court to start the second quarter with the Nets up by 1.
Well, I haven't asked you any questions yet, but I was wondering, because normally when I do interviews,
the drive and the foul.
Why do you have a headset on right now? What is happening?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Walker's going to shoot 2 here to try to re-extend this Nets lead up by as many as 10.
Oh my gosh.
And Walker has been just such a revelation for this team on that 1-year minimum contract. So much special promise that he's brought, so much punch off the bench. Really an enticing signing for this team. Has earned himself a reputation around the league. And
you know you're not working tonight.
Drills that first free throw.
Yeah, has anybody told him that he's not working tonight? Like, dude, clean your apartment.
Actually, do you think he should just come sit in my seat?
Yeah, dude.
See, we don't need like a double box. We could just have you two sitting next to each other.
Do something productive.
Walker splits the pair, and the Nets will go back to the defensive end.
All right, Saturday night. Noah Eagle on hand. Excited for it.
The dude, clean your apartment. Sent me. I texted Ian about it this morning, and we had a good laugh. Oh my God, that was so funny.
That's so dope. That is so dope.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Do you imagine I'm still doing this 30 years from now? It's like, hey, I got a thing coming up on. I got a medical thing. I got a medical thing this week. You know who's gonna fill in for me? My son. That'd be sweet.
That would be crazy, man.
And I think the thing that's cool, like, nepotism's all over this industry. Nepotism's all over everywhere. But, like, you hear Noah do the job, and you're like, nah, yeah, he definitely benefits from his dad being Ian, but he's that damn good.
Yeah, he's really
awesome.
good.
I've been lucky enough to know him for a long time. He's great. They're great. They're hysterically funny. And that's we have some very, very good other quality Real Things. They're just too long. So we'll play them tomorrow, when we'll also be joined by Linnell, and we'll also have your calls, and we're generally going to have a great time. If you missed any part of the show, check it out on our podcast, the Hoffman Show Podcast. You can find it anywhere you get your pods, or on YouTube, rewind at the Team 980, or on the free Odyssey app. We'll see you tomorrow on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980.